Ron Mills.
Derek Benavides.
Frank Orozco.
Miles Garza.
We have a quorum. Please begin.
Thank you. Notice of a public meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Brownsville pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meeting Act notice is hereby given that the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, has scheduled a regular meeting on Thursday, April 4th, 2019, at 5:30 p.m. in the Commission Chambers on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall Old Federal Building located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas 78520. 1, approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on March 7, 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve. We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearings, item number 2, public hearing and action, the Woodlands Number 2C subdivision final plat.
This subdivision is 8.955 acres. It's located near Heritage Oak Drive and will consist of 47 residential lots. We do find the application incomplete. It's missing the items on the screen.
Is there a motion?
Finding
Motion.
complete.
Have a motion to find incomplete. And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 3, public hearing and action, Rosewood Estate, Section 1, final plat.
This subdivision is 30.223 acres and will be comprised of 72 residential lots and 1 reserve area. We do find the application incomplete. It's missing the items on the screen.
Motion to find it complete.
Second.
I have a motion from Derek and a second from Miles. All finding complete. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 4, public hearing and action, Hacienda West subdivision, Section 10, final plat.
This subdivision is 2.344 of an acre. It will consist of 16 residential lots, and we do find the application incomplete.
I'll move to find incomplete.
Mr. G makes a motion to find complete.
Second.
Frank finds it a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 5, public hearing and action, Paso del Rey subdivision, final plat.
This subdivision is located near Dakota Avenue. It's 12.98 acres, and it will be 9 commercial lots. We do find the application complete. Here is an aerial, and here's the plat.
Okay. Motion to find complete.
Do we close public hearing or?
Oh, do we need public on?
No.
These have already
No,
passed.
These are already done. Go ahead.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Derek made a motion. Frank second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 6, public hearing and action, Santander subdivision, Phase 4, final plat.
This subdivision is 9.62 acres. It will be 36 residential lots, and we do find the application incomplete.
Move to find it complete.
Second.
I have a motion from Miles and a second from Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 7 has been removed from the agenda. Item number 8, public hearing and action on ordinance number 235, 2019, 010S to allow a commercial use in a general retail use in Apartment G for a 1-acre tract of land comprised of 2 tracts, Tract 1 being an approximate 0.5 acres out of Lot 1, Block S, Brownsville Land and Improvement Company subdivision, Share 22, Espiritu Santo Grant, Tract 2, being the east half of a certain 1-acre tract of land out of Lot 1, Block S, Brownsville Land and Improvement Company subdivision, Cameron County, Texas, located at 25 Boca Chica Boulevard, Brownsville, Texas 78520.
This property is approximately 1 acre. It's currently zoned Apartment G, and they are requesting a specific use permit to allow a commercial use in Apartment G. And this is fronting Boca Chica. Here's the aerial, here's the zoning map. As you can see, it is along Boca Chica Boulevard. To the west is going to be Military Highway, where it changes. So you can see most of the area is dwelling. However, along Boca Chica, there is commercial use, including general retail 4C and light industrial 7C. This is part of the Loop Corridor in our future land use plan, which is primarily commercial, but with a healthy mixture of residential, institutional, and industrial. Community facility land uses are also permitted. Residential uses should have a density of 4 dwelling units per acre and should consist primarily of single-family dwellings and attached apartment homes. Here is the aerial of the property. To the north, there's single-family dwelling. To the east, there is single-family dwelling and commercial business. To the south, there's commercial business and single-family dwelling. And to the west, there's going to be commercial business and then some single-family dwelling. It's a little hard to see in the aerial, but there is some existing structures on the site. Right here is going to be like a snack stand and a tax office, a water mill, and 2 duplexes. Here you can see them. Here's the 200-foot radius map. Here is the site plan. Blue is not a good color. Okay. On this side, it's mostly existing with the commercial structures and the water mill and the existing duplex. However, they're looking to expand it and adding 2 more additional duplex. There were 26 mailouts and 0 written opposition. Staff does not support the specific use permit to allow a commercial use in Apartment G, AG, due to the site plan not complying with all city codes and regulation.
Can you go back to the picture?
This one?
Is there an exit in the back?
There is not. It's hard to read right here, but they're saying there will be a fence and they will not have access to the alley. This is an alley and this is an alley. They're saying that this comment right there and right there is saying that those are for fire purposes and the parking spots.
So there's only one way in, essentially.
Through here. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
What were you're saying there were some city code issues that you're concerned about. Is there something that's correctable, or is there?
Yes, it is correctable. However, the changes will require a major amendment, which is why we're not supporting it tonight. We would like to see the changes made and then have
Prior
their
to-
initial
okay.
specific use correct.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. Anybody has any questions, comments, or interest in this particular project? Step forward, please. Please step to the podium and state your name, please, sir.
My name is Oscar Atkinson. I live on 45 Honeydale Road, which is a property that's, my property, the rear of my property is adjacent to that alley.
Okay,
My concern is traffic, increased traffic in the alley behind my property and also the side of my property. There's already been some damages to our gas meters, and I'd just be concerned that increased traffic would someday be a major,
potential problem.
emergency problem.
All right, sir.
Where's your property at again?
Is it directly behind it, you said?
Yeah, it's directly behind, it's right on the corner.
So here's Honeydale.
Yeah.
Is it going to be back on Poplar
No,
or in Honeydale?
it's on Honeydale, it's right here, this property right here.
So it's going to be this one.
Yeah, that property.
Okay.
It's my property, the back of my property is alley and the side of my property is the alley.
All right, sir.
So they're saying that the alley will not have access, they will not have access to it?
Correct.
So if there was no access to the alley, would you have an issue with this?
I would not have an issue with, if there was some.
If there was
sort
no
of a
access?
wall or fence that could not, well, even a fence could be removed or moved.
Right.
But if there wasn't any access to the alley, if the traffic would flow to Boca Chica, I wouldn't have any.
Okay,
any issue.
awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson.
If they require what the city wants, maybe that
Well, I'm curious to hear what exactly, I don't,
Yeah,
what exactly is these major changes that were
Pending.
pending or?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So any change from a site plan that's approved here and by city commission needs to request an amendment. Minor amendments can be approved administratively. However, it has to be a reduction in intensity or a shifting. If you're adding anything, it will require a major amendment.
And then,
But-
Is the applicant here at all? Like, are they in agreement with making the changes that the city needs to make?
We did recommend that they withdraw it from the meeting tonight. However, they did not agree to that. They did receive a comment letter through the site review process yesterday. So that's
Okay.
where we're at.
anybody else have any comments?
I'm still kind of curious, what are the changes? Like, what is this, how is this not in compliance?
So one of the changes we are requesting is bicycle parking.
Okay.
They're required to provide it, which would be an addition, which would require a major amendment.
Bicycle parking?
Yes.
And what
Okay.
about the fire exit in the back or something of that nature? Is
So
that
this most recent submittal actually did get approval by fire. It's a little hard to see right here. But this hatched portion right there, they're actually proposing to demolish from the existing duplex in order to have a required width drive so they can enter.
Oh, okay.
So now with that, it will probably reduce, because by giving the bicycle, right, then it will reduce the amount of buildings.
It wouldn't change the amount of buildings, but it would be in addition to the site plan.
Yeah, what they're saying is that they're basically putting a plan forward that they intend to modify immediately, and they're saying they shouldn't be doing that. They should wait till they're finished and give them a completed plan. Is that, am I understanding correct?
Correct.
So if we, instead of denying it and causing them to have to refile or have to go through any more administrative costs, what is the way that we'd be able to say, listen, we're not I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody here, but if I were to vote against it, but not want them to have to incur any more fees,
So we have no fees for them to postpone to the next meeting.
So if we
Postpone.
just tabled it? Till we
You could table it
to-
and come
to
back
this-
next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, let's,
I need a motion to
well,
close
I'll
public.
Well-
move to close the public hearing.
yeah.
yeah. I'll
Second,
I have a motion from Miles, second from Frank to close public hearing. All in favor?
aye.
Action.
Motion to table.
I have a motion from Derek to table. And his second.
I'll second.
Second from Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And just let them know that we helped them out. And then the next time around,
They need to
should
make
be
sure they get their act
denial and
together.
like, hey, you gotta come plead your case.
Yeah, especially with
Mr. Glenn?
bicycle stuff.
Do whatever it is you gotta do, your items up now. You're number 9, right?
Bicycle parking?
Yeah. All right.
Item number 9, public hearing and action on
Erica.
ordinance number.
Erica,
Could you note in the record that Mr. Galunski is leaving for this one item because it affects him
Yes, sir.
personally? And we will still have a quorum, so.
Yes, sir, I'll make a note. Item number 9, public hearing and action on ordinance number 235-2019-011S to allow a wireless communication facility in a general retail use light industrial J for a 1.67 acre tract of land in Lot 1, RA Lyak Estate, partition share 22, Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located near the corner of Fish Hatchery Road and Expressway 77, Brownsville, Texas 78520.
So this property is 1.67 acres. It's currently zoned light industrial J, 7CJ, and they are requesting a specific use permit to allow a wireless communication facility, a WCF, in light industrial J. The proposed use is for a WCF, and it is fronting the expressway. So here is the zoning map of the area. Along the expressway, there's going to be light industrial use. And to the west, along Fish Hatchery, there is a single-family subdivision. However, it is zoned apartment. This is part of the linkage corridor in our future land use plan, which is primarily commercial and institutional uses. Residential uses should have a density of 6 dwelling units per acre and should be primarily single-family dwelling and attached townhomes. Here's the aerial of the site. So to the north, there's commercial business and single-family dwelling. To the east, there's the expressway, and then commercial business and single-family dwelling. To the south, there's some undeveloped land, single-family dwelling and commercial businesses. And to the west, there is single-family dwelling and then undeveloped land. So here is a Google image. So you can see the land's currently vacant. This is Fish Hatchery, leading to a residential area.
That's where Camp Rio is too, right?
It's not right here, though. This is right on the expressway. They're back. Here is the 200-foot radius map. Here is the site plan. Here's the expressway, the frontage road. Right here is, this triangle is actually going to be their lease site. In the center is where they're going to put the WCF. It's important to note that it's not meeting several city requirements. It exceeds the maximum height, which ordinance requires to be a maximum of 135 feet. They're proposing a total of 160, and that does include a lightning rod. The WCF does not meet the minimum distance from residential property. You can see right here, they are 27.4 feet away from the nearest residential property line. City ordinance requires 100. For monopose.
Wow.
And the WCF fence does not meet the required dimensions, which is 8 feet. They're proposing a 6 foot.
6 foot height or 6 months dimensions as far as around the tower?
I'm sorry?
You're saying dimensions, but then it's 8 feet. Is it 8 feet diameter or 8 feet high?
Height.
Okay.
We also require that it's a wooden fence. So on here, they're just saying that it's a proposed 53 by 53 by 53 wooden fence. It needs to be 8 feet in height.
Is the applicant aware of these things, or?
Yes.
Okay.
They have a representative here tonight. So staff does not support the specific use permit to allow a wireless communication facility in Light Industrial J, 7CJ, due to the site plan not complying to all city codes and regulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. Anybody has any questions or comments, please step forward. Let this lady go first, and you can come next, sir. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My legal name is Maria del Carmen Perez Almaraz. I go by Carmen Almaraz. I'm the one that lives right on the corner on Fish Hatchery. I do not want this tower here. I did some of my homework. Slowly but surely, it is radiation. My husband is sick and I really don't want this. I've protected the Fish Hatchery wildlife back there. We want it still safe. It's peaceful, and we want it to stay like that. There's also another thing is that there's 12 of us there. They're acre lots. We protect our subdivision. I'm grandfathered. I keep up with my subdivision. It is hard for me. This tower coming in is going to lower our value to our land. We've worked so hard for this tower to come in. It's just, I don't see any benefits to me. I don't see any benefits to any of our neighbors. So there's also safety issues. We do have a correction house down by the flea market. People walk through that area a lot. There's nobody taking care of it. I sure don't want anybody flying thinking they're superheroes if they get a setback. There's people hiding around there. I don't want anything. We had a fire and it was chaos. We just don't want any more chaos there.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please state your name for the record, please.
Sí, mi nombre es Rosalinda Perales. Yo soy una de las personas más cercanas allá al lugar donde quieren hacer esta antena. Para empezar, se va a acabar mi privacidad. Cuando yo agarré allí era algo solo, ¿verdad? Ahora, esto para mí es un peligro por lo de las radiaciones, ¿sí? Porque es algo que no es luz, es algo que va a traer y eso son puras enfermedades, ¿verdad? Igual es un peligro porque va a ser una antena muy alta y cuando viene el tiempo de las tempestades, huracanes y eso, ¿qué es lo que va a pasar? ¿A quién voy a acudir? ¿Quién me va a responder por eso? ¿Sí?
Yes.
Ok. Es todo.
Gracias.
Yes, ma'am.
Gracias.
And you had something, ma'am?
Yes, my name is Graciela Villarreal, and I happen to live there as well, same neighborhood. Excuse me. I have a petition here signed by the neighbors to stop the AT&T cell phone tower from being built located near Fish Hatchery and Expressway 77. First of all, Planning and Zoning Commission. Okay, we were shocked to learn that neighbors within the neighborhood of this project site did not receive an initial notice of the plan. Yes, yet most of us were first made aware of the purpose of considering the application when the public notice was mailed to other residents. Okay, so we shared that copy along the neighborhood. Okay, River Creek subdivision is a privately owned and beautiful small family neighborhood. An antenna tower will drastically devalue the neighborhood as health effects possesses public safety hazards and invades personal privacy. An AT&T antenna tower will be 130 feet tall, an ugly eyesore that will devalue our neighborhood. Research shows that 90% of the home buyers and renters are less interested in properties near cell towers and would pay less for a property in close vicinity to cellular antennas. Another point is, according to a series of reports giving scientific evidence and professional testimony, along with other informative documents about the impact of environmental toxins on health, the microwave from a cell phone towers can interfere with the body's own EMFs, which means electric magnetic fields, causing a variety of potential health problems, including headaches, memory loss, cardiovascular stress, low sperm count, birth defects, and cancer. Point number 2, placing an antenna tower near the single-family homes possesses a public safety hazard. There's always a possibility of fire from toxic chemicals contained in the backup battery near the high tension cables, if any. Point number 3, privacy is one of the most important things in our lives. Having an antenna tower near will require maintenance that will be performed any time of the day or night by service personnel. It will be an unnecessary public sore to the neighborhood, to the neighbors next to the antenna. In light of all above factors, we, the undersigned, request that the AT&T antenna and the city of Brownsville, Texas, to immediately halt the planned installation of a cell tower antenna near the corner of Fish Hatchery Road and Expressway 77, Brownsville, Texas, 78520. I have the list of the petition. I don't know if I should hand it.
If you could surrender it to the ladies here, that would be
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would actually, we do accept written protest, and you are in time to protest, but you need to submit a notarized copy
That's
to the
fine.
city secretary, and I'll be happy to give you the contact information.
That'd be great. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd also like to pause and
Sure.
point out that we are required to notice a 200-foot radius
Yes, we are.
around, and we did
Yes.
notice that.
Understand. Yes, sir. Please.
These are all the same.
Good evening.
How are you, Drew?
May I proceed?
Yes, please.
Of course. My name's Ken McKay. I represent a New Singular Wireless PCS, which is actually AT&T. They are the real party in interest, the applicant for this specific use permit application. I've passed out a handout which shows a few things, and then I am also prepared to address the specific concerns that we just heard from the citizens. So this is a cell tower, a wireless communication facility cell tower. And in our application, based upon our conversations with the planning and zoning staff, what I was advised is that we have complied with all of the requirements for this application with two exceptions. One is the height requirement and the other is the setback requirement. The third exception, which I heard for the first time tonight, was the fence, the height of the fence. 6 feet to 8 feet, that's no problem to change to 8 feet. So, and if I had known that before tonight, we would have made that change. So that's really what we're here about tonight, obviously, other than just the application itself. But I will say that as to the other, we've been advised that as to the other requirements, we're in compliance with the city ordinances. This location is a unique location. It was selected in part by the Border Patrol. It'll also be part of the first, what's referred to as FirstNet. I don't know if familiar outside of this industry, everyone is at FirstNet, but it is a specific communications network that was established a few years ago that established a separate vehicle, a separate network for first responders. So police, fire, EMS, and that sort. We know that 90+% of 911 calls are now made on cellular phones. And so this site has been identified both by the Border Patrol and by FirstNet and would house equipment consistent with that purpose. If this is approved, not only will it do those things, but it'll also co-locate with 5 other LTE carriers. So what that allows us to do is to, in terms of the applications for future cell towers, is to reduce the number of cell towers that we would ask for by co-locating at the height that we are requesting. And so the idea is that if we are allowed to exceed the normal height, and that normal height is only the normal height that's required on the ordinance is 135 feet. The structure itself would be 150 feet, but we also always count, and I think the city does too, that there's a lightning rod that's above the antenna that's 10 foot higher. So we would say that, we have disclosed in our application that the height of any of the equipment that would be on the tower would be 160 feet, which does not conform with the ordinance requirement of 135 feet. And that's the basis for requesting the variance related to height. If we look at page 3, the other thing that makes this unique is that the location itself does more than just serve what we refer to as the polygon that it would serve. And you'll see this is the general area on the third page of what we call the offload area. But let me first flip to the next page. If we look at that, that's what the coverage looks like currently in this area. The next page shows what it would look like at 150 feet. And we've said 150 feet because that's what the height of the antenna is. But it's not just that it vastly improves the coverage in this area. If you look at the last page, what you'll see is that all of the nearby cell towers are at capacity. And so the idea is that this increased facility would allow to take some of the capacity that's now at maximum capacity in this growing demand area and offload some of it such that the service, the actual in function, it will affect the service provided to a much larger area because it allows for increased capacity beyond in some of the nearest cell towers that are in existence. And so so it is unique in that, as I've already discussed, it is a location identified by the Border Patrol and FirstNet. It allows for the relieving of a capacity cell towers that are nearby. And it is the only site that, in the complete search area that allows to do all those things. The reason why, as an aside, the next item on the agenda is also another application that we have. In that application, we do not seek a variance. In that application, we are able to comply with the height requirement. It is the dynamic of this unique site. It is related to the elevation of the property in order to allow the physics to connect with the existing network. And so because it has to, in order to provide the coverage that's needed to accomplish these goals, it has to be at a higher elevation because of the base elevation of the location. Like I said, although there's we perform an extensive search, there is no replacement site for this that accomplishes these goals. In addition to allowing the cell service that for which there is growing demand in the city, it puts in less jeopardy the idea of first responders, network, 911 calls, and the like. Now, that addresses the height issue and the fence issue. The other issue is the setback variance. The setback is, as you know, setback requirement is typically 250 feet. Because of the size and configuration of this lot, of this property, it's impossible to put this any place where there's at 250 feet on all sides. Just impossible to locate it there. And the only thing that I would say about that is this is the only site that we've been able to find that exists that satisfies the requirements for service, the service needed in this area. And so I'm here to say that we cannot comply with a 250-foot setback. And the reason for it is just the size and configuration of this parcel. I will say that on I think there's the aerial view that's on the screen now. If we look sort of at the west side, is that the west side or south side of the, oh, can I? This, with the pen. Slow learner, but I get there. This area in here there's actually utilities, or the utility easement there. So there is some separation that exists between that now and will exist. There are utility lines and there are buried cables that are there. And so there is a buffer zone that already exists between the property, the tract that we're talking about tonight, and the structures and the properties that are on the other side. I don't know precisely which locations were of the ladies who spoke earlier, but just in going out there, even as recently as this afternoon, we see there looks like somewhere in the 50 feet to 75 feet, maybe more, from the south property line of the tract at issue from the time there would be a setback from the utility easement that exists. And so I would offer that as something that mitigates the non-compliance with the setback on that side.
Can I just ask you this real quick? I understand that the neighborhood's right there, but what's wrong with the south side of that property? Where you see where the triangle is, what's wrong with further south of that, the expressway, where there's not that many homes or anything right there? Go down?
Further down.
That large area right there. Why couldn't you use that property instead of being abutting next to a neighborhood right there?
I think there are two reasons. One is I think that it's not available based upon our site acquisition team, and the second thing is that I don't think the physics related to connecting with the network works at that site. So my understanding is that it is not feasible both from a physics standpoint and from an availability. In other words, we don't have the power of condemnation. We can't force someone to sell us or lease us the property. Mm-hmm. And so that's the short answer.
And this applies to the other side of the expressway too?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, with regard to the concerns that were expressed before me, I'll just say a couple things. One is that we have not received we have not had anyone talk to us about those concerns. Obviously, this is what we do for a business, and so we're very familiar with the research. I will say that as part of our application and part of the representations we made, we represent, and it is accurate, that we've complied with all health, safety, and environmental regulations related to requirements for putting in WCF. And I think that AT&T has instilled its own standards which are above and beyond that. Obviously, the other thing I'll say with regard to property values is this. Although I would say that it is logical and we encounter this in many sort of infrastructure improvements, it is logical to say that, to assume that property values decrease, but that's not been the experience that I've seen from the research in the state of Texas generally, and in the Cameron County, Rio Grande Valley specifically. So I understand there is a concern about that, but I've seen no evidence to suggest that there is a decline in property value as a result of that. Those are my answers to the concerns, and obviously we, like the Planning Commission, are receptive to having conversations with anyone who has concerns. If they want specific information, if they want data, if they want research, if they want to understand what precautions are going to be taken, or what measures are implemented to address those concerns, we are happy to have those conversations. As things stand today, we haven't had no one has reached out to us. That may be in all fairness because they didn't know how to do that, but now they do. And so if somebody wants to talk to us, I'm happy to have that conversation. We have a representative here. We have scientists and experts on this area who can talk to them about the details and specifics of what their concerns are and what our research we've developed shows.
If we table this, would you be willing to talk to them and maybe figure something out? And then come back at the next meeting? I mean, that seems like the fair situation, at least at this point.
Well, I understand that. I'm happy to have that conversation with them. I'm happy to connect them with people, but we already, we're scheduled to be here before the city council in 2 weeks, I think.
Right.
And so.
But that is if we approve it.
We've already, I'm sorry?
That is if
No,
it's
it's
approved
going to
or
be in
denied.
front of them. It's going to be in front of them anyways.
Oh, it's going to be in front of them?
Yeah.
If it's denied tonight, it will not go to the 16th meeting. If it's tabled tonight, it will not go to the city commission meeting on the 16th. Only if it's approved tonight will it go.
Why is this different than?
That's for all of them.
So
For
denied or
every
tabled?
case that's denied, we re-notice the neighbors, let them know that it's been appealed, and tell them the new date.
My understanding is that we would go without regard to that, so that's news to me. But that's part of the problem because this is a situation where timing is important. We have some concerns about the service that's being provided currently. And I don't want to, we never want to be party to having knowledge that we're at capacity on a number of different locations in the city of Brownsville. And I don't want to be a party to and easily acquiesce on something like get a drop call for 911. I just don't want to be part of that.
Well, from my perspective, I would contend that regardless of the position of the people who are adjacent to it,
Yes, sir.
the staff has not recommended it based upon some issues that may be correctable. And so the only way you're going to find that out is for us to table this or something of that nature so that they can review it. Because if we move forward right now, I would suspect that since our staff members have said for this reason, this reason, this reason, it's not meeting standards for city code, your chances of survival are pretty minimal.
Well,
So-
that's why we're here. I have, among other people, I have personally had conversations with Mr. Vega.
Sure.
And he told me this, and Francesca can tell me if she disagrees, that their recommendation is based solely on the fact that we don't comply with the height and setback requirements. We acknowledge that,
Correct.
okay? There's no other reason to deny, according to the staff, except for the fence issue, this application. And that's what a variance is about, right? I mean,
Right.
if we have presented a compelling reason to grant a variance, then that's what we're here about today. And so,
Absolutely.
but what Mr. Vega told me was that they do not oppose it. They're just bringing to you the fact that
Correct.
it requires it would require variances of both of those things for it to be granted.
Absolutely, and my understanding, and my statement was not that someone would deny it, but that we would table it so these adjustments could be made, so it could be brought forth with a completed and satisfied staff, and then the citizens would also have an opportunity to discuss with you your concerns,
Well,
or
but
their
there-
concerns. I should say.
And, I mean, this is not a slide or anything like that. I actually wholeheartedly agree with the reason why we need this. It's just, I think that it would be better off if you actually speak with the citizens that are here present, alleviate their concerns, as well as figure out, again, how to work out with the setbacks and speak to staff further.
Because then
Well,
But that's
Given from what I'm understanding, this is an unfixable issue, that
It
a
is.
variance is the only way to deal with it.
it is.
So,
We do require at least 100 feet from monopole from the structure to the nearest residential property. cannot be
And
met
based
at this
upon
point.
your number, it's completely different than the one he provided. He said it's 250 feet. You're saying you have to have at least 100 feet,
It's
so.
250 feet for anything besides a stealth tower. A stealth tower is considered a monopole. So if it's a monopole, then it's 100 feet.
Okay.
Anything else requires 250.
And based on the dimensions you provided us, you could put it in the center of that property and get 100 feet, but you're not gonna get the 250 that he said. So,
Possible.
again, yes.
Right.
It's worth noting as well that this is not the board that will grant a variance. You would
Correct.
have to apply for 2 separate variances, and that would be heard by the Board of Adjustment.
I understand that, but I mean, I guess the point is, the point that you made, which is there aren't any adjustments that we can make to facilitate getting this corrected because of the requirement. I will say that there are stealth versions of cell towers that can be used.
Sure.
The problem with that are within the height restriction. The problem with that is then you create a situation that it doesn't provide the amount of coverage that we're talking about, which means they can't co-locate.
Right.
And so what that means is you're building in the necessity to build additional cell towers.
Right.
And if we're trying to keep those at a minimum, then that's something that that purpose is defeated by using a stealth tower.
But let's be honest, I mean, as far as the before and after coverage, it doesn't look like that's that big of a coverage, to be honest with you.
Well,
Unless I'm reading this completely
Well,
wrong.
there is a fairly substantial difference in the area, but also it's the offloading opportunity of those cell towers that are at capacity in the city of Brownsville right now. And so that is what concerns us from a timing standpoint, because let's just say that this has been scheduled before, and it's been postponed before, and so it's gotten to the point where a fair amount of time has passed. And so, I mean, I understand your comments. I appreciate them very much. I guess the problem is I am hesitant to acquiesce because I know of the timing issues that are presented in this area.
Sure.
And I don't want to be that, I don't want to be that guy, as my son would say, who says, okay, let's postpone it, and then we have a drop 911 call that results in death or injury in the city.
Francesca, they've agreed, I think you've agreed to fix the height of the fence
Of the
issue.
fence.
So the only other 2 things left are the height of the actual tower and the distance between the
Setback.
residential setbacks. That variance is granted by Board of Adjustments, correct?
That's correct.
So even if we said yes, you still gotta go over there.
Correct.
So might be debating something that's not even within our purview. Because,
Now-
so the next step, I guess, in my opinion, this is just saying it out loud, that we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, is the issue we're trying to stop here something other than that?
Even if they met all of the city ordinance requirements, they would still be required to get a specific use permit. This type of facility, a WCF, is allowed by right if it's located more than, I believe, 550 feet from a residential property. So regardless of the height and the land spacing requirement, it would still require a specific use.
So in essence, that's what we're doing. We're giving them the specific use to be able to use this property for the cell tower. But the
Subject-
actual variance problems and the actual problems with the application in itself is a Board of Adjustments issue.
It would have to be heard by the Board of Adjustment. However, this specific use, like all specific uses, do have a site plan that y'all have to agree to, and there can be like we talked about with an earlier case, any changes will require an amendment. So that's why on the site here, it does say that it's a monopole, and it does say that it is a total of 160 feet, including the lightning rod. And it does say that it's 27.4 feet away from the nearest residential lot,
Okay.
which does not meet any of our requirements.
Which, right. So
But
the
that-
point
but-
here is,
But to get the variance to fix that problem, they go to
Right,
Board
so
of Adjustment.
before anything could be constructed, the Board of Adjustment process, they would have to submit new applications, pay those fees, and we would advertise it, including sending out a public notice to every property owner within a 200-foot radius, and it would have a Board of Adjustment hearing.
Yeah, because this is, my concern is that he's having to prove up a case to us that he should really have to prove up to Board of Adjustments. So we're making him work doubly hard for something that's not technically supposed to be our. You know, that's what it seems like,
But-
because if he's gotta go over there and do it, and they're gonna be the ones that are gonna say, yeah, that's okay, you can do that, and they're really the final say on that, then, you know, should we be putting him through the ringer at this point in time, if that's gonna happen to them over there? And that's my.
but
that's
my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that under the ordinance, I have to get a specific use permit and I have to get a variance. So I have to get it granted by both places. So my understanding, and you're the expert on me, is that you can approve a special use permit subject to review of the Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, but you just said that if we approve, it's gonna go to city commission for approval, when you still need to go to the Board
Well,
of
there's
Adjustment.
specific.
But we can't do it without this. We have to have the specific use permit approved here, subject to the Board of Adjustment. So, and my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you deny it here, then I'm starting all over again. And I still have to go to Board of Adjustment.
The denial process is if P&Z denies this case as any other zoning case, you will have a 30-day window to which you can submit the appropriate fee and a letter, and it would go to City Commission, where it would require a 3/4 majority vote.
But that's not the only way it can happen, right? I mean, they can approve the special use permit tonight, subject to the Board of Adjustment, and we can move it forward. The neighborhood then still gets a full opportunity to have notice and be heard, and then these arguments are made before the Board of Adjustment.
The specific use permit gives y'all the authority to grant uses if you feel it's appropriate in the area. Through this process, you can request additional things above the basic requirements. That is why it is important to note that it does not meet city code requirements.
But otherwise, there
And you
would
could
be,
request additional items if you would like to be shown on the site plan.
but if we have known from the beginning that this requires a variance, then this particular
I just think.
being on the
that
agenda serves no purpose, right? It has to serve some purpose or we wouldn't be here.
This site, due to its proximity to residential uses, does require a specific use permit.
Okay, that's what I thought. And so there is a reason for us to be here today, and that is
Yeah.
a specific use permit. You're not saying that no variance is needed. You're not saying that it complies with everything. You're saying that for the use itself, you approve it, and I still have to go to the Board of Adjustment to get a variance on these specific issues.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Move to close public comment?
I have a motion
She-
from Frank.
Oh.
You had raised your hand at one point, ma'am, again.
Anybody want to say something?
One second.
Please.
Just go ahead and point where we
I just wanted to point out that, yes, there is other properties available with a bigger space. In fact,
Are they
if
for
I'm
sale,
not
ma'am?
mistaken,
He
this is
said
the,
they're available.
this is the canal right here. Right next to it, there's about I want to say it's 5 acres, and it's listed at 5.2 or 5.3, if I'm not mistaken, for sale. If they're considering that they need a bigger space, you know. Also, there's another property right off John Deere. that's for sale. All they have to do is contact the owners.
All right, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you had a motion from Frank to close public hearing,
So motion.
Second.
second from Miles, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There is a property that's down the street that's 5 acres. That's why I was asking.
Go ahead.
If the variances is the issue, what you could do is you could table it, and we could take it to the Board of Adjustment and see if they would grant the variances prior to the specific use permit. Because part of the purpose of the specific use permit, because again, all wireless communication facilities
Right.
that aren't 550 feet, I believe, away from a residential use or do have the incorrect use district is required to go through this process. So part of it is to make sure that it complies with all of the requirements of the telecommunication chapter, which this one does not. So that is an option.
All right, well, since I had the opportunity to participate in voting this week, I'm going to make a motion to table this. Any second?
Based on, I
Go
would
ahead, Frank,
second.
any additional-
But if you got something to say,
Additional
Miles?
comments, Frank?
No. I mean, I think I've already voiced my concerns at this point. Derek, feel free to.
Second that motion.
Any further comment? Mr. Frank?
No, I just think that we're vetting and vetting and vetting, and there's other departments that are gonna do that.
Exactly. By
Decide.
tabling this, I believe that can be addressed before we see it again.
Oh.
And
So we have a
don't wanna
motion
be-
and a
I think it would have
second.
ended up there anyways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, but instead we're wanting to delay it.
We have a motion and a second to table this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Name.
One abstain, three for, one against, the motion carries. We table it till next time, or some other time in the future.
Why?
Number 10, Erica. Now, let me get Mr. Galante.
Item number 10, public hearing and action on ordinance number 235, 2019, 012S, to allow a wireless communication facility, general retail use, and a dwelling Z for a 5.10 acre tract of land out of a 24.5 acre tract located north of the Tahualachito Banco in Share 1, Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located at 8250 US Highway 281, Brownsville, Texas 78520.
10.
This property is 5.1 acres. It's currently zoned dwelling Z. They are requesting a specific use permit to allow a wireless communication facility in light industrial J, 7CJ. And the property is fronting US Highway 281. Here is the zoning map. As you can see, the majority of the area is zoned dwelling. The area that's white is outside of city limits. This is the Gateway Corridor and the primary regional node in our future land use plan. The Gateway Corridor is primarily residential land uses with very limited amounts of other uses. The average density should be 0.25 dwelling units per acre. The primary regional node should be predominantly commercial land uses and strive for vibrant and urban character. Here is the aerial map. To the north, there's some commercial business, single-family dwelling, and for the most part, undeveloped land. To the east, there's undeveloped land and single-family dwellings. To the south, undeveloped land, single-family dwelling. And to the west, undeveloped land and single-family dwelling. Here is the front of the property. Military. Here's the 200-foot radius map. Here is the site plan. Staff supports a specific use permit to allow a wireless communication facility in dwelling Z, DZ, with the condition that the property must comply with all city codes and regulations as determined through the site plan review process.
So there's currently no variances.
It is meeting the height and land spacing requirements.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a public hearing. Anybody on this one?
Move to,
No, we can move it. If nobody's here, you're all right, man. So,
I'll move to, I'll
ahead.
move to close public
there
hearing.
you go.
Hold on.
Oh,
Hold
sorry.
on.
Oh, there is somebody. There we go. Sorry about that.
Sorry. I'll withdraw my motion.
Yes.
You can go ahead.
For the record, Chairman, thank you for having us. I'm J.D. Salinas. I'm the Assistant Vice President of AT&T to answer any questions. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here and answer any questions you may have, which I see that. But I just want to make sure and add on this tower and the one that was talked about earlier, not only is it for first responders and most importantly, Border Patrol, there's specific equipment that we can't talk about on the record
I understand.
that's being used, that's being affected today by not having these two.
Yes, sir, I understand that.
And also the capability to deploy 5G. So with that, I think, thank you for consideration.
Yes, sir, thank you.
And thank you for coming down here.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Motion,
All right.
Ooh, I'm not gonna take it away from you.
No, you can
Miles
take
No,
made a
I'll
motion
second,
to
I'll
close.
second it for you.
Okay,
And
fine.
Derek
Move to
seconds.
close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A motion to approve?
Based on,
Staff's recommendation.
Recommendation. Second.
or restrictions, or?
No, there's no restriction.
No.
Oh.
All right, I have a motion from Frank and a second from Derek to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So it doesn't give you 100%, but you're betting 500 anyway, so.
Item number 11, public hearing and action on ordinance number 235, 2019-013, to rezone from general retail G to apartment H for a 7.215 acre tract of land out of a certain 808.3 acre tract of land out of survey number 34, share 19, Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located near the intersection of Paredes Line Road and Coffeeport Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78521.
This property is 7.215 of acres. It's currently zoned General Retail G for CG, and they're requesting to rezone it to Apartment H, AH, and it is fronting Coffeeport. Here is the zoning map. As you can see, along 802, the vast majority is going to be zoned fourth commercial. However, there is some existing apartment in the area. To the south of the property on the other side of Coffee Road is going to be mostly dwelling. This is part of the sub-regional node transition central district and town corridor in our future land use plan. The sub-regional node is a balance of commercial and residential land uses so that neither use categories take prominence over the other. Community facilities and institutional uses are also present to support the residential nature of the node. Residential uses should have an average density of 9 dwelling units per acre and consist primarily of attached apartments and townhomes. The transition central district is comprised of mostly residential land with a mixture of other uses. Residential land should have a density of 2 dwelling units per acre and consist primarily of single-family dwellings. And the town corridor is primarily residential with small clusters of commercial land uses at regularly spaced intervals. Residential uses should have an average density of 3 dwelling units per acre. So here is the aerial. This is a little out of date. To give you a point of reference, right here is going to be the Chick-fil-A, and right here is the Blue Wave that are both currently existing. So north, there's going to be business plazas and other commercial business. To the east, there is title company, single-family dwellings, and other commercial businesses. To the south, it's going to be single-family dwelling. And to the west, it's going to be a fast food restaurant, single-family dwelling, and commercial business. Here is the view from Coffee.
What subdivision is across from it? I'm
It's
trying to remember.
across the street from BML and Hudson's house and that stuff. All those houses that line up along Coffee Road.
I don't recall the name. Here's a 200-foot radius map. There were 19 mailouts and no written opposition, and staff does not support the rezoning from General Retail G, 4CG to Apartment H. Also included on each of your stations is going to be a letter that was written by a neighbor within the 200-foot radius, showing some of their concerns with the rezoning. I think the highest priority of which is going to be the density that H allows, as well as the height that H allows. I believe there's people here for this one as well.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. Anybody have any questions or comments? Please go this gentleman here first, and then you can come up.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, my name is Steve Gano. I'm a partner in the Drennan Company and also their general counsel. I'm here in support of our application today for rezoning of this property. I wanted to show you some interesting peculiarities of this property. That's why I've given you this drawing. This shows, it's a little more up to date, this shows the Chick-fil-A restaurant there. And what I've done is I've highlighted the access easements surrounding this tract. And what you can see is that this tract has 2 points of access to 802, another point of access over to Paredes Line Road, and 2 points of access to Coffeeport Road at this time. It attracted us because we think that we can design to utilize all of those points of access. And because of the way the traffic flow is in this area, we can have flow out past Chick-fil-A on that drive, which is 3 lanes wide and has a light at 802 at that point. It's 2 lanes exiting and 1 lane coming in. On the other end of the retail center there, you see there's another access drive that runs between the bank and the retail center. And then heading to the west, there's an access drive between the bank and the fast food restaurant there. We have applied to rezone this property because we would like to build an apartment project on there, and we think that it will end up being designed to accommodate possibly as much as 144 units, which is approximately 20 to 1. Okay? If you look at the second page, that's the zoning map, expanded a little further than what they've shown on their screen. If you look to the east of our property there, you'll see fronting on 802, 2 green areas that are apartments. Those are 1,300 feet from our property. When you flip to the third page, you see the aerial photographs of those 2 projects. And you can see the one on the left is 117 per acre, and the one on the right is 125 per acre. We will fall in between that density at around 100, at around 20 per acre. So the problem we have and the reason for the rezoning is that our current zoning only allows 12 and a half, and it cannot economically be justified at a 12 and a half per 1 because of the expense of this land. This land will have to then be used for retail and commercial purposes. It could be a movie theater, it could be a retail shopping center, what have you. But we believe a good use for this because of the residential behind it and the nature of residential traffic on Coffeeport would be a very nice apartment project. We plan to invest $4.5 million in this location, and we're going to do it right. If you know our company, we've been doing business here for well over 40 years. My partner and I built properties in the late 70s and early 80s that we still own today and operate. We build to keep, not to sell. So we build it with the idea that we're going to have it for the next 10, 15 years. So we do it right. Any
Just a comment.
questions I can answer?
Yes, for me personally, I have a question on all these accesses that you illustrated here are all private accesses. Is this something that you expect you'll be able to establish some kind of relationship with those owners or get access to all of those?
In some cases, for example, the one on the right-hand side of our property is on our property.
Yeah, I see that road came through there. I assume Mr. Alex, when he built the Chick-fil-A and put that road in, he had permission to put that road through there, a private road, but.
Well, this drive right here, this is a
one.
50-foot mutual access easement
Okay.
on our property, and 30 feet of it is already paved. And it predates, if I'm not mistaken, the Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, they were all done at the same time, actually, but okay. And now, but the ones on the other side, I'm just curious, and just, I would love for you to fix some of those because they have potholes big enough to swallow a semi-truck. But,
There is a pothole there, and I think right now the responsibility for that is on the bank and the fast food restaurant to repair that. And I think they've been contacted and asked to repair it and haven't done it. Obviously, when we start to develop this, we're going to make sure that the accesses are in good repair.
Understand. The reason I ask these questions, one, this was brought before us roughly 1 year ago, a similar project, 200 units at the time. And that time, Mr. McCumber wrote a letter this time himself, but the last time one of his staff members arrived, and they had the same concern I have, and I live about 0.3 miles from here, so that's why I have extra interest. But the biggest concern is the fact that the overflow traffic on this lane already goes past the FBI headquarters every day. And how would 200 units for roughly 400 cars, or let's say 160, that's 320 cars extra flow in and out of that coffee port area?
Well, for starters, we're not doing 200 units.
Well, I said 100, if you have 160, that's 320 cars.
We're talking about, we expect to do no more than 144 units. And it's quite possible, based on the design, when we try to connect to all of these access points, that it will actually be less because the additional drive area that we'll have to put on the property. You know, our feeling is that the traffic from this site is not going to all go out on Coffeeport. I don't see why a tenant living in this facility would want to go out on Coffeeport when they can go out on 802,
Correct.
which is 4 lanes,
I
you know,
agree.
plus a center divide,
Right.
or go out on Paredes Line, which is 4 lanes, you know, with a center turn lane.
Right.
So while there will be traffic onto Coffeeport, I do not think it'll be the primary access point.
Okay.
I would like to, I know that company very well. They've been here forever, like for 50 years here, and they do good design.
Sure.
They will never design something that will not work the way they want it.
No, I
And-
understand.
And then for apartments, I mean, there is apartments all around that area.
Sure.
And probably those will be probably the finest one of all the other ones, some of housing and stuff. But they will not make something that will not work. I can guarantee you that.
I don't think anybody here would
that's
criticize the work quality at all, but I think the only concern at this point is, which is why staff is denying it, is that it's doesn't fit within the density. That's it.
Is that correct? Is that why it was denied?
Is that why?
It does not meet the future land use plan, which calls for a much lower density than the 25 units per acre. It's also worth noting that even though they intend to use the private drives, and they intend to only have 144 units, with this rezoning,
Right.
with no conditions, with no specific use permit, no site plan to be held to, there won't be held to it. They
Right.
will be allowed to do up to the maximum that they can fit.
Let me point out that this tract is also subject to deed restrictions and architectural design committee review by residents in the area. And I really don't think that they're going to let anything be built here that would be unattractive or that would be a blight on the traffic in that area. So I would also point out that this circle that they've drawn about the future land use in that area is somewhat arbitrary. It's just drawn right around this intersection, and all of that area is developed. It's already an HEB. It's already a Compass Bank. It's already, you know, all these other retail facilities on the other side of the HEB. So ours is the only undeveloped tract there.
Right.
So that, you know, it's like this is some kind of future land use that's been adopted and imposed on this tract, and it's not reasonable. So I would submit that our request is reasonable. Obviously, whatever we design is going to have to go through the architectural design review process and approval. It's going to have to go through plan review. It's going to have to meet all the standards of the city. But we want to know that we will be able to build apartments here before we expend the money for the full design on this. And we can't build apartments at 12 and a half. We need to be able to reach at least 20.
All right, thanks. Yes, sir.
My name is Jim Wilkinson, and I live directly across from where this complex is going to be built. I'm not opposed to it. I know Mr. Drennan, he's a good man. All I'm concerned with is that road in front of me. It is hell to get out of there in the mornings and the afternoons. If you add 200 more cars there every day and every afternoon, it's going to be worse. What I propose, I don't mind the apartments, but build that road, make it wider, make a turning lane there, and build sidewalks on both sides. And I'll go for it. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
So he's got condemnation.
Good evening. My name is Bill Hudson. I actually developed 1,000 acres around the subject. We sold that land to Mr. Drennan's group a couple of years ago with the understanding that he was going to put in some sort of a development. I've known Mr. Drennan for 40 years. He only does quality. I would not have sold this 7 acres to him if I was not confident that he would. I've just given Ms. Francesca a copy of the restrictions, the landscape. It's about 30 pages. I control that, and I completely, and this is across Coffee Road from my home. I'm not .3, I'm spitting distance.
Exactly, yeah.
And I support, and I'll tell you why. I mean, apartments, I'm thrilled, because I kind of expected him to put in the storage depot kind of thing, and he said he would wall it off, and I believe him. He does quality stuff all over the U.S., by the way, not just here in Brownsville. He's reputable. I have complete confidence that he will, and by virtue of these recorded restrictions that he must abide by, that he will. And just to remind you guys, or maybe you don't know, in the early 90s, I began planning this 1,000-acre development, and I was saying we're going to have landscape ordinances, we're going to have sidewalk requirements, we're going to have architectural standards, and all the developers that knew what they were doing said, well, the guy's crazy, plus he's going to be bankrupt in a couple of years. And then by 1996, I had captured 33% of the Brownsville residential market. And then all these big developer guys came in and said, well, to the city commission and said, well, we need to have sidewalk and landscape and all these things for quality of life that are required. So I just, all I want to say is I support this, and yes, I agree on the Coffee Road. I mean, sometimes I spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes even trying to get out of my own driveway, and it's bad, but that's not going to go away, whether it's apartments or whether it's retail. And I would just say, and one of the things I've said to some of the folks that have said, well, we don't want this, I'm saying, look, fine, go with what it's already zoned for. Put in a strip center. Then you got 7-step programs and people coming in and going out all the time, and you just don't, and bars. I mean, my gosh, apartments, it's going to be housing. He's going to do it nicely. I would rather have residential. And then another thing for National Association of Home Builders, Urban Land Institute, and Counselors of Real Estate best practices is you go from the single family to the multifamily into the commercial. We've already got the commercial there at the hard corner. So this just makes sense to make it multifamily. I support that. And I know the developer, and I believe that he will do well, and I've got some controls. Any questions for Bill Hudson?
No, sir. I'm glad you came forward, because last time this came forward, no one from the neighborhood came, and I was concerned why there was no expressed interest, so.
I was there, it was Bill Sisson, and if there was an issue, I would have come forward, and he does a good group. By the way, he said the economics just didn't work. That was 2016, and at that point, there was too much supply of multifamily, and John, because he lives here, or Mr. Drennan, because he lives here in the Drennan group, he sees through the risk. He knows that this is it's going to be a good project. I believe that it will, and this is why we recorded these restrictions in, I don't know, mid-90s.
I have a question, Steve. What about?
Thank you, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Mr.
No,
Drennan.
the guy said that if you would build the sidewalks or widen the street, well, could you work it out with them, with the city on something like that?
Well, I suspect in the planning process that the sidewalks will end up being required on our side of the street.
So sidewalks are required for all new development inside city of Brownsville. The only way to not construct a sidewalk at this point for a new development would be to get a variance from the Board of Adjustment.
Yes, so I think we could do the sidewalks. It would be outside of our purview, though, to widen the street
Right,
there.
no, we understand.
I mean, we just couldn't do that. And like I pointed out, we really think that's going to be our secondary access to this site. We think most of the traffic is going to be in and out on 802 and in and out on Paredes line. So, but sidewalks, we are expecting we
So
will have
you
to
have
do
a
that.
problem with it? Francesca, if they are willing to put in the sidewalks and all that?
They'll be required to put in the sidewalks, whatever they develop.
Yeah.
I have just one more question for you, sir. And this is just a curiosity question on my own behalf. The tree line that runs along the side of the road, there are all the mesquites along there. How far is your right of way gonna be from the arm?
I believe those are either in the right of way or on the edge of the right of way, so most likely those are gonna
And the
remain.
reason I ask is does there room for the city to put in another lane if they needed to? I'm just curious, based upon your observations from.
I honestly don't know. I do know that the Coffeeport is not paved to the full width of the right of way at this point.
Okay, Ms. Connie, just answer my question. So,
Yes.
Thank you.
What was the answer?
All right, the answer
Yes.
is that there's plenty of room to put another lane there.
There is?
So,
Okay.
yes. All right, thank you, sir. That's what-
Uh-huh.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Larry Holman. I was a partner with Burton McCumber and Cortez, and am no longer full-time there, but I show up every once in a while when they have a birthday party and a cake or something like that. You know, just happen to have been there for a number of years, and like everybody else, frustrated with the traffic. Coffeeport is only 2 lanes, doesn't have shoulders. You know, if you add a bunch of cars to it, it already backs up around the curve during the rush hours. I mean, there's no doubt it's got a problem. Now, Burton McCumber is not against putting apartments there. I want that understood, but the density is a problem. I mean, how many more cars can we put on there? And then imagine for a second, and this is a safety issue, imagine for a second that kids are trying to get on a school bus. And they're probably not going to stop on Prentice Line Road, and they're probably not going to stop on 802. They're probably going to come down Coffeeport. And so you've got maybe junior high kids, you've got elementary kids, and you've got high school kids. The buses are going to have to stop. Traffic is going to have to stop in all lanes. There's no shoulder for the bus to pull over on. They're not going to probably pull into the subdivision. So it's going to cause a major, major problem on both sides of the road. The other thing is that we have 6 acres for our office. And I think Mr. Wilkerson, if I'm remembering right, has about 1.6 acres. Bill himself, I think, has about 2 acres, maybe even a little bit more than 2 acres. And that's kind of the size and the green space and the area that we have within our area. You go up a little bit further along the road, you have behind that next wall, you have really, Paseo del Resaca, which is beautiful. You know, you've seen the houses in there. The apartments at whatever, and a problem that we also have is that we don't have any plans. Apartment H allows 3 stories. Can you imagine, the people behind the wall? You're looking up and you're seeing a 3-story apartment, people looking down. You're behind the wall, you've bought bigger lots so that you don't have people encroaching on you. It's not quite fair. It really isn't. We would all like to see plans, to be honest. Is it going to be 20? Is it going to be 15? We don't know. We don't know if they're going to be 3-story. Apartment H allows that, so we just don't know. So we'd all like to see the plans. Again, we're not against apartments there. We would like them to fit within the neighborhood, though. Traffic is a problem.
Thank you, sir. You have something to say, sir?
Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Newland Lancaster, and I own a property right across the street from the proposed apartments. And not to keep, going over this over, traffic is the biggest issue. And sitting here and listening to the presentation, it seems to me like the solution might not be the best solution. I don't know if there is another solution or not. I've got to believe if you've got 140 units, you've got 300 to 400 cars on that parking lot. There's moments in the day that they're coming in and going out, so there will be some traffic issues. And I think for all of us, the neighbors on that right there in that corridor. It's, the traffic is a big issue. And I think also the other big issue is changing the zoning to, basically to apartments to where you could have 3-story apartments, not really knowing what their intent is at this point. Are they gonna go up 3 stories, keep it at 2 stories? I think the lack of information makes it difficult for the people in that area to feel comfortable. So I would just say there's a little bit of, maybe misunderstanding because there's not enough information, but I just wanted to register my concern about this proposed apartment complex.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Anyone else?
I think like they can negotiate with that company to see if 3-story, 2-story, everything is negotiable.
Right.
So I guess that
As Francisca stated earlier, though, when we making a decision on what we're going to allow, we lose control of what that looks like. That's why we don't see pictures of plats and drawings of buildings when they're brought before us, because they could show us a picture of a 140-unit place. It's just spectacular, and they could build a 200-unit place. It looks like barf, and there's nothing you can do about it, because as long as that meets the code, it's allowed. So I understand their perspective totally, but it's one of those things. I trust these people are going to build the nicest place in the world if they get the chance to do it. But please, you're welcome to put in your part.
One of the uses that's permitted right now on that site is a hotel.
Yep.
So, I mean, we could build a 7-story hotel.
Sure.
If we wanted right there. We're trying to put a project there that is consistent with the neighborhood. And as Mr. Hudson pointed out, this is sort of a transition area between residential and pure commercial. I would point out that in terms of height, the houses along the other side of the road have that wall there. I'm sure y'all are familiar with it. Then you have the full width of the road and the right-of-way, and then you have our setback on the other side of it. It's quite likely that a 3-story apartment wouldn't be visible over the wall because of the distance. So I really think that's shouldn't be a concern at this point. And the other thing is that whatever we build is going to require that we provide parking that's approved in our design by the city, by the plan reviewers. And again, they're talking about traffic on Coffeeport Road, and only 2 of our 5 access points are on Coffeeport Road, and the other 3 are on 802 and are on Paredes Line. And that's where I believe the majority of the traffic is going to go and come from. We're going to design it that way.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Need a motion?
I would like to point out that the current area District G would not allow that tall of a structure. Even if it was a commercial structure, it would still be required to meet the 24-foot maximum.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
24-foot maximum
Yeah.
Yes,
height?
yes.
So in other words, they couldn't build a 3-story if they wanted.
It's worded a little differently for commercial versus residential. There is a possibility that they could go taller with commercial use, but they have to be back from the setback. So
Yeah.
loses their footprint, gains elevation, 1-to-1 ratio.
Thank you. Need a motion to,
I'll move to close public hearing.
Miles make a motion?
Second.
Second from Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion?
I make a motion
If-
to approve.
Have a-
If you approve this tonight, I would strongly recommend adding a conditional overlay to restrict the number of units to the 144, which the applicant is saying that that's what they're intending to do. I would also recommend capping the height to 2 feet. These seem to be the 2 stories. That seems to be the 2 strongest oppositions from the neighbor. I would also further ask for a conditional overlay to protect the view shed from Coffee Road. I believe, looking through some of the papers that Mr. Hudson gave me, I believe it would match what they're intending to do for this area anyway. But if it isn't a conditional overlay, then we can enforce it as a city. We cannot enforce these restrictions.
So can we put a conditional overlay on a property change? I thought that only
On a
applied
zoning change?
specific- Yes.
Yes, you can add a CO, a conditional overlay, to any zoning case,
All right.
which
So-
we've done pretty frequently. We did it last month as well.
I just
You
thought
want
it
to
was
make
just
those
specific
modifications
uses.
to your,
Yes, but well, motion to approve with a conditional overlay of only 144 units. The rest, that's not a part
That's
of
where
my
you're
motion.
putting your thing, okay?
Yeah.
And I guess,
So Frank has made a motion for approve this with the condition of no more than 144 units.
and I guess with the
Not the height.
restrictions,
Not the height, not the.
What I would like to do, I would like for them first to work it out between them and Francisca. Come to, let's give them, let's say, another month till next month and see what you can work out with them. If you can come with both of you can come to agreement.
Well, I mean, I
Bring
think,
it up to us.
I think if they've, the neighbors, I think the neighbors understand that something can go there already. It's just a matter of what exactly it is that they want. And if the neighbors are okay with the apartments going in there, if they don't oppose that, but we're limiting them to a certain number, then, and of course, well, and I would want to add to the two-story to your motion, but that's your motion. If the neighbors are already good with this and council's good with this as well, then I think they already have hashed that out, unless I'm misreading what the audience had just discussed.
All right, well, we have a motion on the floor from Frank.
for
I need-
just the 144 units.
Not the height.
Not the height.
Why not?
So anybody
Well,
want to second it?
What's next? What's this building right, I know you don't have it.
That's a
but-
law office,
Okay, so it's a law office. What about right, for a little bit further down?
FBI headquarters.
So the FBI and the law offices are worried that the apartment tenants are gonna look down at them.
No,
Then
no.
who else? Who, I mean, I agree that it's very far away. I think that to limit it to two, the idea is because you don't want people looking in, you know, your neighborhood next door. But if all that's next to it is a FBI building and a bunch of commercial plazas, and to the, behind it, same thing, to the left of it, the same thing, and then in front of it, you have all the shrubbery from the buildings that are actually there.
They're
And I
two-story.
doubt that they're gonna line these things up right on the frontage of Coffee Port.
So there is residential use within the 200-foot buffer, and this would be,
City
Yeah,
can't
listen to
enforce. They'll be able to do whatever they want at that point.
so there are residential uses within the 200-foot buffer. Additionally, to my knowledge, there are no three-story structures in this immediate area. All the commercial structures and the residential ones are Zone G, which would not allow 3 stories. Some of the apartments in the area do have H, such as Sun Colony over here. However, they did only construct 2 stories.
So, again, I say, we have a motion on the floor for the 144 unit cap, and that's the only part of the motion. Anybody want to second that? I'll second that.
Okay. I
All
see your
those in
point.
favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
I'll
Motion-
abstain.
Okay. One abstention, 4 approval. To approve with the condition of 144 unit maximum.
I voted on an apartment.
I can't believe you voted on an apartment at all, Miles.
No, it looks good, especially with the restrictions that apparently they're presenting.
All right, next, Ms. Erica, please.
Item number 12, public hearing and action on ordinance number 235, 2019-014, to rezone from dwelling G to general retail G for a 0.894 acre tract out of the east 10 acres tract of Block 13, El Jardín Subdivision Share 19, Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located at 3271 Old Port Isabel Road, Brownsville, Texas 78526.
Good evening, gentlemen. This property currently is zoned dwelling G. The applicant is looking to rezone the property to medium retail G. The property has 0.894 acres, and its proposed use is a business plaza. The property is currently fronting Old Port Isabel Road. I would like to point out that this is an existing development. It's a business plaza on the front part of the property, and there's a duplex in the rear. So this case and the following case, which is a specific use permit, pertain to the same property. The area is predominantly zoned dwelling. To the east, there is light and general retail, and to the south, there is apartment and professional office and light retail. According to the future land use map, this property is zoned, or it's within the Transition Central District and Town Corridor. The Transition Central District is comprised mostly of residential land with a mix of other uses. Residential uses should have a density of 2 dwelling units per acre and consist primarily of single-family dwellings. Commercial uses should be neighborhood and service-oriented, and industrial uses could include both light and medium industry and warehousing. The town corridor is primarily residential with small clusters of commercial land uses at regularly spaced intervals. Residential uses should have a density of 3 dwelling units per acre. This is an aerial view of the property. To the north, there is single-family dwelling, and there is also an assisted living use, which was approved last year. There is single-family dwelling to the east, and there's a convenience store and single-family dwelling to the south, and there's undeveloped land to the west. Here's a street view of the property. As you can see, the business plaza in the front, and there's a duplex in the rear.
That's already existing?
Yes, it's already existing. This is a 200-foot radius map. There were 21 mailouts and 0 written oppositions. The staff supports this rezone from dwelling G to medium retail G.
Gentlemen, this is a public hearing. Anybody have any questions or comments on this particular property?
How far is it from the, I guess, the water park or the?
Cascade Park?
There we go.
I want to say, well, it's a couple miles away. It's Cascade Park is further down south, towards Rubentoros.
It's gonna be about right.
Right there, you sure?
Yeah, somewhere in that general area. Okay.
Okay, I'll move to close public hearing.
I have a motion from Miles to
Second.
close and a Frank second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Action?
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve from Miles.
Second.
I didn't hear who said it. Derek?
Second.
Derek, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 13, public hearing and action on ordinance number 235, 2019-014S to allow a duplex, a dwelling use in a general retail G for a 0.894 acre tract out of the east 10-acre tract of Block 13, El Jardín subdivision, Share 19, Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located at 3271 Old Participable Road, Brownsville, Texas 78526.
Okay, so as previously mentioned, this case also pertains to the same property. The applicant is requesting a specific use permit to allow a duplex in the medium retail G zoning. The property has 0.894 acres. The proposed use is a duplex, and the property is fronting Old Port Isabel Road. Again, the zoning that's predominant is dwelling. To the east, there is light and general retail. To the south, there is apartment, professional office, and light retail. Again, it's in the Transition Central District in the town corridor.
You don't need to read that. You just read it.
This is the aerial view. Again, single-family dwelling, retiree resort to the north, single-family dwelling to the east, convenience store to the south, undeveloped land to the west. Street views. This is a 200-foot radius map. This is the existing site plan.
I can't see how many duplexes that is.
It's only one duplex in the rear. One structure, 2 dwelling units. There were 21 mailouts and 0 written opposition. Staff supports the specific use permit to allow a duplex in medium retail G with the condition that the property must comply with all city codes and regulations as determined through the site plan review process. Well, in this case, it's already existing.
Can you go back to the duplex?
Since no one's here for the last time, I assume nobody's here. You have something to say, sir? Please step forward.
Miles gonna go with this. Approve it.
Yes, sir. Please state your name.
Good afternoon. My name's Ed Arriaga. I am the owner of that location. Basically, we are having our martial arts go up front, and hopefully in the future, I want to do another duplex in the back, utilize the space.
That would require a major amendment and possibly a
When we get
change in
there.
the area district as well.
when we get there.
This would not allow that.
But you're just asking for one duplex.
At the present time,
Okay, sounds good.
in the
All right, thank you,
future.
sir.
Not right now, but hopefully in the future.
This property though, this one's .894?
8.894.
She's got plenty of room.
So you're saying that major amendment would be required if he were to want to add a second one?
But if he's got specific
It-
use, he can't put a second one without you.
Yeah, no, I know. But what I'm saying is, if he's got plans for possibly doing that in the future, is there some information that you might be able to share with him that would help on the positioning of current one, that would make that an easy adjustment?
Yes, Mr. Argiaga and I have met several times to discuss it.
Okay, as long as he knows.
And then this
We
complies
have to start
with
it
it,
right
right?
now.
I'm sorry?
This site plan complies with that?
This
Well,
is
this
an
is already
existing.
existing, sir. This was built
This
in
is all current
2005 or so.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
they're
lost
just trying
the
to
legal
come
non-conforming
within.
time.
But in the future, I want to make another duplex,
Understand.
hopefully.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
good deal.
All right.
Move to-
Anybody else? Need a motion?
Move to close public hearing?
Second.
Motion and second to close, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to approve,
On the condition,
Based on staff's condition.
based on staff's condition. Yeah.
I'll second.
All right, have Derek and Frank, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 14,
Item number 14 has been removed from the agenda.
okay? 15,
Item number 15, public hearing and action on ordinance number 235, 2019-016, to rezone from general retail G to dwelling G for a 8.617 acre tract of land comprised of two tracts, tract 1 being 5.389 acres and tract 2 being 3.228 acres, out of a 29.273 acre tract of land comprised of part of lot number 9, block C, Brownsville Land and Improvement Company subdivision, and part of a 47.259 acre tract and a part of a 30.0-foot road as shown on plat of Brownsville Land and Improvement Company subdivision, shares 12 and 22, Espiritu Santo Grant, City of Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, located near West Morrison Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78520.
but before we continue, just in case those didn't hear it, item number 14 has been removed. I don't think that went out very well, so if you're here for item 14, it will not be heard. Go ahead.
So I just want to point out, this case and the next three cases, they're all related to each other.
Okay.
Okay, so
15 through 17 are all the same? All related, I should say?
they're all related.
Okay.
do you want to read them all together, or?
You want me
Yeah,
to read?
that's fine, please.
16 and 17?
Yes, please.
Item number 16, public hearing and action on ordinance number 235, 2019-017, to rezone from general retail G to dwelling G for a 1.015 acre tract of land out of a 47.259 acre tract, share 12, Espiritu Santo Grant, in the city of Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, located near West Morrison Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78520. Item number 17, public hearing and action on ordinance number 235, 2019-018, to rezone from general retail G to dwelling G for a 2.923 acre tract of land out of a 47.259 acre tract, share 12, Espiritu Santo Grant, in the city of Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, located near West Morrison Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78520.
And the next one is related.
And number 18? Item number 18, public hearing and action on ordinance number 235, 2019-019, to rezone from general retail G to dwelling G for a 3.829 acres comprised of part of Lot 9, Block C, Brownsville Land and Improvement Company subdivision, and part of a 47.259 acre tract and part of a 30-foot road as shown on plat of Brownsville Land and Improvement Company subdivision, all in share 12, Espiritu Santo Grant, City of Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, located near West Morrison Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78520.
So 15 through 18.
Correct. So all of these properties, they're practically adjacent to each other. They're all currently zoned, they're currently zoned general retail G. They're all looking to rezone to dwelling G. They all have different acreages. The proposed use is residential development. And all properties are fronting West Morrison Road. So right here on the zoning map, it would be these properties to the north of what's already highlighted here in red that are all related to each other. But as you can see, the area is predominantly dwelling. Along Morrison, the zoning is general retail, so it's a commercial corridor. And to the northwest, to the south, and to the east, there is apartment zoning. All these properties are within the Transition West District and the Town Corridor. The Transition West District is predominantly residential with healthy mix of community facilities, commercial businesses, and institutional uses. Residential uses should have a density of 2 dwelling units per acre and should primarily consist of single-family dwellings. The Town Corridor is primarily residential with small clusters of commercial land uses at regularly spaced intervals. Residential uses should have a density of 3 dwelling units per acre and should primarily consist of single-family dwellings. So this is an aerial view. Once again, to the north, we're looking at these properties as well.
Is this right next to the railroad tracks?
Yes,
Or where
it's
old
the abandoned
tracks?
railroad track that's potentially the West Rail Trail.
Is that gonna be a trail or a road?
They haven't
It's-
decided yet.
Or is that still, that's still ongoing?
Still up for debate.
Okay.
Okay, so to the north, there is undeveloped land, single-family dwelling, and civic institution. To the east, there is the abandoned railroad, there's undeveloped land, single-family dwelling, and commercial business. To the south, undeveloped land, single-family dwelling. And to the west, there is undeveloped land and single-family dwelling. There wasn't any street views because they were not photographed, but it would be,
Basically, everything is naked there in the middle.
right, so all of this area right here.
Is it,
That's
for
the
single
whole-
family?
Right, the proposed use is a residential development.
Single family.
Single-family
Correct.
residential.
Correct. This is the 200-foot radius map.
And just to be clear, numbers 15 through 18, is that entire area circled, or is it further down the
And
road?
further up too, right?
It's, for this particular item number, it's just this area. But items, the next 3 items, it's also these
Oh, okay,
pieces
so
of land.
Okay.
across the street.
So
Yes.
Is that a whole area? Okay.
Right.
Okay, yep.
Obviously, for each one, there were different amounts of mailouts. For this particular one, there was 46 mailouts and 0 written opposition.
Is there any opposition on any of the 4?
No.
Okay.
Is there anybody here for that? Mayor?
And you support this? Does
We
not
do
support-
not support this rezone.
Why is that?
Oh.
Really?
The reason why we do not support is because Morrison it was made to be commercial. Now, if you can see right here on the zoning map, if we were to put a residential development here in this area, it leaves this area right here and this area right here as being commercial. So we just want to keep it continuous as what it was planned for.
Well, I guess where's the Home Depot? Because I think that's the last developer.
It's way
The
over.
map is underneath the A on the word.
The
I-
Home
I-
Depot would be around this area right here, along with the academy.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, this,
No,
it wouldn't be that
further
one. It's further to the east.
I'm trying to
So
figure out where the
it
express.
would be over here.
The express-
Here's the expressway.
Expressway's off the map. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd also like to point out that this was a city-initiated case to change it to a commercial category at the request of the property owner. At that time, there was an agreement between the city and the developers to have this commercial and the surrounding area residential.
So the owner originally asked the city to make this commercial, and now they're asking for it to be converted back to residential.
Correct.
My goodness.
That's fine. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this? Please step forward. Oh, we've got a nice little group back there. Let's start with this couple here in the front, and then we'll work our way through. So,
It won't be with that.
Imagine the application. All those neighbors.
yes, ma'am.
Teresa Rivera.
Luis Rivera, evening, ladies and gentlemen.
We live on the red section. We're actually here for the 16.
The subdivision is not on the screen, it's a delayed photograph of Google Maps. But that whole
We live right here.
subdivision is completely full.
Right.
Yes.
So that's already developed, that whole area?
Yes, it's already developed. They're actually starting to develop farther to the left, farther down the road. They're doing the new subdivision. Our main concern is, we prefer residential just because if it's commercial, there's already a lot of traffic. There's already been several accidents. We don't have any any actual, traffic light, and we understand that that's, Texas dot. But, that's already an issue. And we already see that the line, the traffic, if you, on the, what is it,
They wanted to change.
yeah, in the mornings from McAllen
They're
Road,
supporting.
way past the entrance to Home Depot, it gets full of traffic already. And that's already just because it's just houses, people take that road. If we add commercial to that, it's gonna be very hectic for us. Aside from it's gonna increase our accidents, we've had a lot of accidents near the Sterling area and closer to the Laredo Road. We've had a lot of accidents, a lot of people who are driving very recklessly around that area. And we just also have a question regarding the houses that are being proposed. They're single units, and are they the same kind of the company, like the Simmons?
They have not submitted a plat yet, so we don't know what the lots are gonna look
They
like.
just know that they want it to be residential.
So
Yes, the first step is making sure that they have the correct zoning and then to subdivide.
for our
Okay.
purposes, then you are in support of the idea of switching it to
Yes,
residential?
residential.
Okay. Yes, sir.
1 second on that. On circumstances, we are aware of residential use, but not exactly to an extent how's gonna be the division between our fenced backyard.
Mhm.
It's a single unit family,
Single family unit.
Yeah.
Single family, yeah.
So
so
there's
it's
gonna
just
be,
gonna be identical to the houses.
Well, they don't know that.
We don't know
no,
that,
no.
that's what, we don't know
but the
that.
thing is, there's gonna
The
be more,
developers in the
there's
back
gonna be
will
more
say something
houses
about
there, more people if it does become a single dwelling unit, and you
Not-
already know that, so it's gonna.
Not exactly, though. They could do acre lots if they wanted to. I mean, there's nothing that would prohibit them from.
And the most likely.
could
But they're
also-
not
I mean,
gonna-
I know,
they're not gonna do.
I understand what it's likely. I mean, quarter acre lots are smaller, but, I mean, the reality is, like you guys are realizing, there's no plans. I mean, there's just, this is what they're proposing, to go single family, but there's no definition as to what the single family will be.
I'd also like to point out that dwelling G also allows duplex if the lots meet the certain size requirement.
Yeah, that's another concern.
But
Our
now
biggest
Miles
concern
isn't here
is
when
the
they do it.
traffic.
If,
You don't
if
want
it's
it
gonna
abutting
be
Morrison Road.
to the point other than single family units,
That
then
would be
it
another
could be
case.
some issue degrading our houses. For
I would,
example,
I would suggest, I suspect you're gonna have him, one of the developer here in a few moments speaking. In fact, maybe we'll have him come next before the rest of the people do. That way you guys will have a better idea. And what's his proposal he's gonna be proposing, that may help. Okay.
And I guess y'all go all the way down to Alton Glore, and then you drive from Alton Glore like to the expressway or to the 281?
I'd take Morrison.
either side to the, taking right or left, it
Well,
is,
well, you know the nature of all the, well, you see how that road is like, you have like a duplex, apartment complex, business, home, you know, complex, and the thing is that you want the area to be consistent, and I guess.
We're not looking for another Boca Chicas, basically.
Yeah, yeah, essentially, yes, and so if that whole area has already been zoned as commercial, and I guess when y'all bought the property, y'all knew that it was gonna be, that whole area was gonna be commercial, it will change the dynamics of the neighborhood into looking at like Alton Glore on the west side. And that's something that we wanted to be kind of consistent with. At least that's for my opinion and how I've always voted on this
at this
board.
point, it's for residential use, right?
No,
No.
it's zoned as commercial.
He's asking
wanna
to
make it
We want to make it residential.
Yeah,
Then
and
we
you
are-
wanted to be consistent
We
with,
are for residential,
so you're for changing it.
for
Yes.
residential, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Perfect.
Just, as long as it doesn't be like a halfway commercial residential having duplexes and
No,
stuff.
that's
And that's,
But
That's,
We
It's-
could only
We don't
go
know
so
that.
far. We
Right.
could only guarantee.
but
So
even
those-
then,
those are the gray
residential
areas.
would be much less traffic than
Potentially.
commercial.
I would actually
Presumably.
expect most of the commercial would be neighborhood, service-oriented businesses that
Like
would
Subways and
be,
things like
make your
You guys were
trip
here
to
at the
the store a
coffee
little
port
easier.
discussion right now, as far
But
as,
that's not,
that was
that's not a
exactly the.
guarantee.
No, it's not guaranteed. It's fourth commercial, so most retail uses would be allowed currently. If you look at most retail plazas, they have fourth commercial. I will say that a bar would not be allowed in fourth commercial without getting a conditional use permit, which means that you as a neighbor within a 200-foot radius would receive that letter, and you could come here and say, we don't want a bar.
Thank you. But, yes,
I'd
sir.
also like to point out that technically, they could actually have single-family homes right now with fourth commercial. However, they could not have duplex.
Okay. All right. Yes, sir, please step forward. If you are involved with the development, I assume?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm with Enel Simmons and Associates, Inc. We're the developers of basically all the homes that are to the south and all the homes that are to the north.
Okay.
And yes, as Francesca said, it was changed to commercial a long time ago. And for the simple reason that we thought there was a possibility of something happening out there. Santander's been out there probably going on 15 to 20 years. They've had no luck doing anything, and they have the perfect corridor, the intersection of Laredo Road and Morrison Road. They've had a lot of deals come up, and most of their property is they've been trying to sell it as apartments. And this is not going to be any different than what y'all already have Laredo Road as. Laredo Road starts residential, changes to commercial, and then in the Santander subdivision goes back to residential again. So this, and then I feel the railroad track is the abandoned railroad track is the perfect buffer for it. I think from that point, if we get our zoning, put residential in, and we plan to do for the individuals that are here, we plan to do the same housing that is to the south and to the north. Similar size lots, similar size houses, same type of situation that we've been doing. We've developed probably about 700, 800, 900 houses out there. And so what we're doing, really, the odd man out is going to be just the intersection of Laredo and Morrison, because from the railroad tracks, it's the perfect buffer. It'll be residential all the way through. Then there's going to be a small piece as you approach Laredo Road, and as you pass Laredo Road, it's all residential all the way back to Alton Glory. And then on the other end of Alton Glory, I'm sure y'all, it's all wildlife and this and that, so there's nothing else that can develop that way. And like I said, he's been trying to do this for Santander. I work with them. I just finished buying some property from them on Laredo Road. And it's got the stucco fence. It's right up against Laredo Road. We're back in our houses. It's going to be a similar type subdivision. Stucco fence with the houses back into it, the entrances into it, turned out real well. And like I said, this is not anything new. There's all kinds of commercial. I understand what y'all want to do with Morrison, and that's what we were hoping it would happen. But with all the land to the east, Giselle, and even the area right off the freeway can't develop. It's still working year after year after year. I've been with the company 30 some odd years now. The only reason Morrison Road happened was because Mr. Simmons, who's no longer with us right now, and the other property owners there worked with the city to force Morrison Road to happen and put up half the money to do it. Because when TxDOT was going to do it, everything was put into the east side, because that's where all the commercial, that's where it was going to happen. And I understand it. That's where Home Depot is. That's where Academy is. And then you get to the other side. That's where Pablo Quisel is. All that land was established a long time ago. All the strip centers, all the shopping, this and that and everything else. That area in front doesn't need little mom and pop stores or little strip centers. They have everything they want just right on the other side of the railroad tracks. And so what that area needs is more homes, because land is tough in Brownsville right now. And a lot of people looking for places to live, a lot of people looking for nice subdivisions, and that's what we're attempting to put in out there. And they will, I believe, through the planning process, if this passes, and we have to go before y'all, of course, to get a subdivision approved, they will also have an opportunity to see what we're doing at that time, the size of lots, this, that, and everything else.
So plats are open record. You could come to the office and take a look at them, but we do not send a 200-foot public notice to them.
But they all know who we are. We've been out there for a long time, so hopefully we can be trusted.
All right, sir.
So wait,
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So the property that you're changing right now is that little strip, and on the other side, you're saying that it's going to be commercial, residential, commercial, and then apartment complexes in the back. So you don't own the purple one on this side, the farthest left side.
No, the one where
Yeah, that side.
Laredo Road cuts through the middle of?
So the intersection of Laredo
Yeah.
Road and Morrison.
That would be the only portion
That'll
that
still
would be
be
left,
commercial.
that's commercial. And that's what I mean, if you look at Laredo Road coming in, it comes from Alton Glover, it does the same thing, it comes all the way through residential, then it's gonna be that green, which is apartment, then it's gonna go through commercial again, and then back into residential.
And are you guys planning on having the backs, or it'll be like a fence
We will not
along
front-
Morrison?
Yes, sir, we will not front Morrison.
Okay,
It's gonna be just like we're doing right now or not just us, but Santander also, Laredo Road, all the homes back.
and a continuance of the sidewalk, the wide sidewalk.
And
Well, the white sidewalk has already been paid for through Morrison Road, but never installed. But that's another subject.
That is, yeah.
well, okay.
Any questions?
No, that's it first, I think.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have a question before we get 10 more people. Is anybody here, to summarize it, so you don't have to come up here and feel nervous in public, because I don't even like it. Is anybody here that let me rephrase that. Is everybody here in favor of the change? Do they want it to become residential? No, then please, sir, please come up here if you have it up.
Saw a couple of people shaking their heads,
Yeah.
for the record.
All right, please state your names for the
Good
record.
afternoon, my name is Frank Escamilla.
Good evening. My name is Jose Huerta.
We live there in that neighborhood. We just had some concerns. We didn't know what was going to happen, what you guys were planning on building. So now that we heard what he's their plans, we're we don't know if we're against it or for it, because one of our concerns is traffic. We like our neighborhood the way it is. It's small, it's a small community. Like she said, there's a lot of traffic. There's been a lot of accidents. And we were sold that when we bought our properties, they said it was going to be commercial. So we bought our properties at a higher cost. And now they're changing it to residential, so we're kind of, I don't know if it's going to lower our property.
Do you think that it's gonna raise your property value to have like a plaza right behind your backyard?
It could be. I mean, it could be possible. We don't know. I mean,
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think Morrison Road is kind of on the same level as like 802, Alton Glore, Boca Chica, like the bigger streets? Like eventually it's going to become a main, I guess, thoroughfare.
maybe in the future.
thoroughfare.
Yeah, maybe in the future.
Because it's designed like that.
Yeah.
There's only 2 lanes on each side. There's missing a sidewalk, but still, there's 2 lanes on each side. There's a center median. It looks like the development was planned specifically because this is going to be a main artery in Brownsville. And to change it, and again, like I said earlier, you don't want it to end up being like different parts of Alton Glore where you get spot zoning. And that's something that I've always been against it doing, and it appears it might end up being this way.
Yeah.
So I guess your concern is if it's going to change to residential, is it going to improve your property value, or what is your main concern with this besides traffic?
The taxes. Could be the taxes also. I mean, it's this commercial. We don't know if it's or
Man, I mean,
residential.
and the problem
Reduce
with,
your property taxes.
Excuse me?
It would reduce it.
If it goes to
residential.
residential.
Yeah, commercial's gonna make it more.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know, I mean, we didn't want to mess up the appearance of the neighborhood. I know Morrison, when you're going, say, westbound, going towards Alton Glore, that neighborhood, all the fences, it's very unkept, like the grass tall, the fences are falling down. We don't
want that to happen.
We don't want that to happen.
Well, would you prefer, like, look at the map right now, would you prefer there to be a plaza running down there? Or potentially a brick and mortar, which don't happen unless you're some major chain restaurant, or other residential houses there?
The thing with the residential, again, is the traffic that it's gonna cause at this point. I understand in the future it might cause traffic as well,
They're gonna make
being
more traffic
commercial,
with a
right?
commercial, yeah.
But the amount of houses that we are, how we're seeing the map down there, that's us, and the amount of houses across from that intersection, it creates a jam every morning.
There's a high density.
Yes, a lot.
And you have to keep in mind too, the Abandoned Railroad, there's still really a debate of what's gonna happen with it.
Right.
So that, you have to, thinking about that as well.
And like you gentlemen were pointing out earlier, the appearance of Morrison, of the neighborhood, how it's gonna look, having houses and buildings or commercial buildings and stuff like that. We'd rather just keep it the same the way it is. And the other thing that my neighbor already pointed out, I believe, when we bought the lots, we are actually adjacent to that red line, to the boundary, what it would be, the boundary of those new lots. We bought at a higher rate, expecting no neighbors behind us, because it was gonna be a commercial building, which is not gonna have any people, like they mentioned earlier,
And
looking
looking
at
at
you
your property, right.
through your backyard and stuff. And now they're wanting to change it again to residential. What kind of houses are we gonna build? I understand he said similar sizes, but that may vary. Similar to me, it's similar, different to you, right?
So would you'd rather stick with a commercial than?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, when we bought our property there, Simmons proposed that they were gonna build a park for our neighborhood. And until this date,
A park?
that's what they said.
To our understanding, and
That's what they
that's the group of neighbors that we get together down here.
Can you build a park in this?
To our understanding, this lot was supposed to be a park.
If it's a,
Is there for
I'm not familiar with the plat, I'm not sure if there's supposed to be a park there or not.
No, I'm just saying, if it's zoned for this, would you be able to build a park?
A public park or
Yeah.
a private park?
Don't you gotta
I mean,
dedicate
yes,
that?
it would be allowed.
Yeah,
You
okay.
have to dedicate it to the city of.
Yeah, it's been dedicated through the plat, through the subdivision. There's a tract of land there that the city required that we dedicate to them for a park.
Here,
Now,
And the land is there.
should you gentlemen approve it, right? One of our concerns, again, it comes back to the traffic. Is there any way you guys can add restrictions to it or where, I don't know, speed bumps on Morrison to slow down traffic? a
Anything to do
little
with
bit?
traffic, we can't
that's
touch
traffic.
that. We've been
Yeah,
down that
That's
road.
gonna be on traffic.
and seeing,
Right.
and part of
Can't
the,
handle that.
part of the problem that we face, and we face this, it seems like every meeting, it's the same, it's a reoccurring theme, is that property, they own it. And like, my knee-jerk reaction when I heard them wanting to change it from commercial to residential, I'm thinking, holy cow, that's so not what, a typical investor would do. It's the exact opposite. It's always, everybody's trying to go residential and convert it to commercial because it's typically gonna increase the property values. And so the problem that we face is it's their land. They have that option to do that. And yes, I know you guys were, maybe your realtors or whoever it was that told you that when you're buying the property, but that's part of the reason why we have our hands tied to a certain extent is they're going about the right way. They're doing it legally, ethically. They own it. They have the ability to downgrade it, in my opinion, but it makes sense in the situation. And so, and I know traffic is an issue.
But you
And
wouldn't
that's,
want to have
the-
commercial next to.
the traffic is, the traffic is gonna be an issue no matter what.
Right,
Like, and
right.
we saw, you guys heard the coffee port earlier, I referenced that a little bit earlier, is, the coffee port, I mean, that's even, shoot,
1,000 times worse
Morrison
than
is a
this.
dream.
It's
It's
an
a,
expressway.
walk in the park compared to what coffee port goes through. And so, yeah, no, we understand your all's concerns on this, but.
I believe what happened with the subdivision is that they realized how fast these houses were selling, and
Yeah.
that's why now they want to change it.
No,
back to
Yeah,
residential.
there's definitely a shortage of houses.
And while I understand that commercial in the future will still generate traffic, well, right now it won't.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
solution, at least for now, where we keep it like that. If those lots don't sell, well, that's, I'm
It's
sorry,
their
that's on
problem,
them.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, who gets the
I mean, we
the
would-
brunt of the problem?
We
Is
wish
it
we
us?
could keep
Or is
it,
it
we
them?
could keep it like that, right? But, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
at
it's.
the end of the day, you guys make the choice,
Well, I mean, at the same time, it's not our choice, it's their choice. I mean, if they
Yeah.
own the land, I mean, if
Yeah,
if
but it
we-
was city initiated, you have to remember that, went from
Yeah.
city initiated.
One of the other things, and I
dwelling
apologize.
to-
Go ahead, sir, I apologize.
Well, no, I'm just saying that it was city initiated, it was requested by the developer to go from dwelling to commercial. So that's another issue that comes into play.
It wasn't city initiated because we paid for it for the.
Yeah, they developed
It
it.
wasn't city initiated.
So
I
what-
don't know where that information came
I believe it was a city-initiated rezoning case
We
for the
paid-
commercial
we
corridor.
paid- Yeah. We won the all.
So she's saying that you can basically get a refund of your, no, I'm just kidding, just kidding, strike that from the record.
Plus interest.
All right, right, thank you. Gentlemen, you have anything else?
I mean, if they have that plan,
Well, there's,
Okay.
yeah, there's no.
I mean,
There's at least two other, maybe three people that are acting like they wanted to say something.
No, they're
Lady in
they're-
the
they're
yellow?
with us,
Okay,
so,
what about
yeah.
the lady in the yellow blouse or
So
the
is there
yellow
any-
jacket?
She's here for another item.
Okay,
Okay.
fine.
So is there anybody opposing this?
These two gentlemen.
These
This- Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the other two are for.
And our spouses.
Yeah, and their spouses. So it's four are proposing and two are for. So, all right, gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I'll move to close public hearing on items 15, 16, 17, and 18.
A second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close. All in favor?
Aye.
Action, gentlemen?
Well, I'll just make
Support
a
to
motion.
to,
I'll
does not
move
support.
to deny items 15, 16, 17, and 18 based on staff's recommendation not to rezone the area and also to keep the consistency of the neighborhood. So I'll be.
Okay,
moving to
Miles
deny.
made a motion to deny. Anybody second that?
That is, hold on, so then, what?
It's to deny, just to deny.
He just said deny.
To deny.
15,
It's a
16,
motion to
17,
deny.
18 based on,
To go residential.
no.
Yes, to deny residential.
Let it
Let it
To
remain.
deny residential, keep
Keep
it
it
commercial.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the motion that's on the floor. Anybody second? Anybody second?
Nay.
Do I need a second motion from anyone else? Because
I'll-
that motion is gonna have to be canceled because there is no second for that motion, so.
It's dead.
It's dead.
I'll motion to approve,
You wanna make a motion to approve the change?
yes.
All right.
For,
We have a motion
to allow
approve.
residential.
Yeah, items 15 through 18, to allow residential. Yeah.
I have a motion to approve. Anybody second that?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the change to residential dwelling, or dwelling G, excuse me. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
One opposition,
On
one
15
abstention,
through-
myself, and 3 for it, so, motion passes.
Item number 19, public hearing and action on D 19003G to appeal the denial of a determination certificate for 2.026 acres, more or less comprised of 4 tracts of land, tract 1 being 1.86 acres out of Lot 4, the 11th subdivision, tract 2 being the west 13 feet of Lot 3, the 11th subdivision, tract 3 being a 0.135 acre tract of land out of a certain 11.89 acre tract out of Share 19 Espiritu Santo Grant, tract 4 being 0.031 acres, more or less out of Paredes tracts 21 and 24, Share 19 Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located at 3107 Boca Chica Boulevard, Brownsville, Texas 78521.
Okay,
Okay, this case is to appeal a denial of a determination certificate, so I'm going to run through the procedure of the determination certificates because I know we don't get them very often. So the process is the owner submits an application, staff reviews the application. If approved, the plat administrator issues the certificate. If denied, the plat administrator issues a denial letter. All binding decisions made by the plat administrator may be appealed to P&Z, which is why we're here today. So the authority to grant determination certificates comes from the Texas Local Government Code as well as City of Brownsville Ordinance. City Ordinance creates 2 different categories for determination certificates. The one tonight is for the grandfather exception. The grandfather exception requires that the boundaries of the parcel were fully described by one or more title transfer instruments executed before September 1st, 1995. On or after such date, there have been no executions of title transfer instruments such that the instruments could subject such parcel to boundary alterations. They must also meet certain frontage standards and submit a full application. Basically, this means the land needs to have existed with the same description, same boundary since prior to September 1st, 1995. If the boundary of the land was changed more recently than that, it does not qualify for this exception. So here is the property in question. It should look pretty familiar. This was the Magic Time Car Wash that was recently approved for a specific use permit to allow a mobile vendor food court. So here you can see the different tracks are colored. So there's a total of 4 different tracks. here in question. There's the red, the blue, the green. I don't have a purple button, so we're going to use blue again. And then this portion in the middle is described separately as well. All of the tracks, with the exception of the blue at the top, qualified. They were described by title transfer instruments prior to September 1st of 1995. This property was separated in 2008, and there has not been...
Separated when?
It was separated from the parent track in 2008. So prior to
The
2000...
little blue section.
Excuse me?
The little blue section.
Yes, the little blue section. Yeah, I know there's a lot of colors
No,
happening.
no, that's not, I'm just trying to get my profile.
The little blue section was part of up here. Essentially, that's the parent track, and it was split off from there. The title transfer document, the deed, is from 2008. We could not find a record, nor could the applicant or the representative find a title transfer instrument that described just that portion of the property prior to September 1st, 1995.
Okay. It's why is there appeal? What's their appeal?
That's basically what I just said.
Mr. Montanaro, thank you for being patient.
Please,
Yes.
please. Oh, by the way, this is a public hearing, so
Is public comment, ladies and gentlemen.
please, feel free.
Good evening. My name is Frank Montanaro. I've owned this land since '81. Let me get a marker here. This whole track right here, I used to own from here all the way to the corner to Kings Highway. I sold the lot next to me where the purple is, but I kept the purple part. That was done back in the mid-1980s. Okay, I kept that. The red section on the left side was part of the original lot. I did an exchange of land with Drennan. Drennan owns a property back here. He still owns it. I did an exchange, and we made a mutual exchange and made that into an easement for both of us. The utilities are back here, so I needed that easement to get to the back anyway. We exchanged the square footage of this land, and he gave me the green part. That was done back in the early 80s also. So all this, everything I've had it since the 80s. The blue part was landlocked back there. It belongs to Drennan. It belonged to Drennan also. So it was landlocked. This belongs to somebody else. I don't know who that belongs to. It doesn't belong to Drennan. So it was landlocked. So I did in there, and I did a land swap with somebody, he transferred this whole blue section to me. So now I got a complete rectangle. I've got, all my land goes to the back where the water and sewage line is. I've used this whole property since the 1981. The blue part, I used it since I did the transfer. I guess it was in the mid-2002, 2005. And I paved it, and I've been using that whole property. The whole property I'm going to use right now, I'm going to develop, and I'm going to build back here, and I'm going to build all along this side. The reason I'm told I need to subdivide it is because it's landlocked. But, I mean, it's not going to be landlocked. I don't know. If I weren't to use it, it would be landlocked. So I'd be landlocking myself, basically.
The blue part is landlocked.
Yeah.
And then that's the whole basis of trying to get you to subdivide it?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, I mean, my understanding too, I mean, I'm not a developer, but I said, well, you have to subdivide it, but why? Well, some law in Texas say you landlocked, you have utilities. Okay, the utilities are right here in this corner. I couldn't get to the utilities with this lot when I originally bought it. So I had to do the deal with Drennan, which cost me some money to exchange this land for that land so I could access that. That's when I first developed it in there, 81. In 85, I sold the land that's right here, but I kept this for my driveway. So I've been using this whole property, and then in 2005, that's when I got the blue part from Drennan. So everything is gonna be built on the purple, on the blue. There's nothing landlocked. The utilities are in the back here. The utilities are right there, which is what I've been using for 35 years, 40 years. So I don't know why I have to go to the expense of subdividing. I mean, the reason I was told is because it's landlocked. I have to prove it's not landlocked, so I'm coming to you all to prove to you that it's not landlocked. And this is Boca Chica in the front. I mean, it's,
But doesn't he have a title to the whole property?
So all land is required to be subdivided before it can be developed. Presently, they're looking to build that food truck park that was approved, the specific use was approved. And in order to do that, they need to plat. The exception is the determination certificate. Not all properties are going to qualify. This property does not qualify for the determination certificates we have here at the city of Brownsville. So in that case, it would need to plat. to subdivide.
So how do we, how would they, or how could we help avoid having to do a subdivision?
Determination certificate?
Determination certificate.
To approve a.
And how do we do that? What is that? I don't.
You would
approve this
approve it.
appeal.
Approve it, okay.
He's at, I know you've had the property since how long?
81.
1981?
Almost
But
40
my
years.
understanding is somebody, I have to get it replatted to show that it's not landlocked. Or somebody can make the determination it's not landlocked.
But let's
So-
say.
I mean, that's my
It's
understanding.
a little bit
If he
deeper than
surveys
that.
I have surveys, everything's been surveyed. I mean,
Everything is.
I got
surveyed,
titles, I've got
everything.
deeds for all this. I got deeds for the red, the blue,
Well,
the
they're-
purple.
They come up with all those ideas that you cannot change. That it's like I had, before they made me go out and I couldn't even listen to what it is. But to me, you're right, and
No, but I mean,
yours,
to
you
me,
have
I mean,
title- you have title to it, and if
So-
you can prove it, you have
as
title.
a businessman, it doesn't make sense. I mean, to
Well-
me, I don't understand.
Excuse me,
Well,
but
hold on. You've had the entire property since the 80s, except for that blue part officially, but you've been
That
using
came
that
in
blue
2005.
part. But you've been using that blue part since the 80s,
It's
right?
paved. I demolished it, I had to scrape it, I took everything off, my utilities run through there.
So
But you
if,
don't have a title transfer document saying you own it.
Yeah.
In 2005, I
that's-
got the transfer.
and that's why,
And that's when I did the paving and everything was in 2005. when
and the reason is because it was done in the 2000s instead of pre-95, right?
It has to be prior to September 1st, 1995.
And that's the reason why. But
But I
is there
thought
any way so we would, I guess, what would be in our power to do?
My
that?
understanding is there's an exception if somebody's able to,
You do not qualify for the exception, so you're appealing the denial of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we would-
So we would just approve the denial.
Right.
Or just like-
we've done this
Well,
like
no,
2
no,
years ago, we already did.
appeal.
Approve the appeal.
Okay.
I would be very cautious of approving this.
Why?
This land is 5 different tracts of property. Subdividing is not a bad thing.
well,
It's
Yeah,
from a,
I know it can have a cost associated with it, but
If
he's
there
also
was no
building a
cost
food truck
associated.
park and 3 different retail plazas on the site. They're spending quite a bit to already develop it. Some property does qualify for the determination certificates. That's why we have 2. And it's a good thing to have them, but not all properties should be able to bypass the subdivision process. If you were to approve this, just to help them out without any justification, it could be opening, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
Yeah.
say it like that, without justification, then you could be opening up the window for every denial. We see approximately 50 of these every year. Most of them we don't deny, but we would see more coming here and skipping the subdivision process.
can I have a question, ask a question?
Sure.
What's the reason for that? I was told because it's landlocked. So
It's-
somebody doesn't want to accept the responsibility to say, we screwed up, we let them build, and now it's landlocked. So I'm coming here with proof that it's not landlocked. I'm gonna actually build, there's gonna be buildings here and on the purple and all the middle. So, I mean, I'm not gonna sell the blue part with half a building.
Before
mean,
you
but-
can construct anything new, because there used to be something there. However, you're building something new. So when you're building something new, it needs to meet all of our current requirements, which include that it's be platted or qualify for the.
The question is,
Okay.
what is the motivation behind the requirements? Not what we understand why he has to do it, but because it doesn't hit the boxes, right? But what's the purpose behind the boxes? And that's what we want to make sure we don't want to offend that. Because I know from experience, the illegal subdivision problem is based on people that would go have a huge tract of land and would start divvying out meets and bounds without ever adding services to the actual piece of land. And that's what a lot of these anti-subdivision laws, which this process is trying to avoid. Here, again, it's like, okay, I agree with you. There is a good reason to subdivide here, because you do have very different parcels. But my question is, if he owns all of those parcels in common, and they all are gonna serve the same tract of land that he's developing, he may have an issue selling it later on. He's gonna have a big issue selling it later on.
Yeah, but I have no problem with that,
Yeah,
because
but
I'm not gonna sell half a building. I
That's
mean,
gonna be-
Sir,
yeah, I'm not gonna sell half a building. I mean,
do whatever she's gonna tell you, because it'll take you probably years or months, because they will not approve to build on it, and they'll give you a hard time.
well, I mean, that's the reason you all are here. I mean, somebody has to be reasonable and say what's reasonable for a businessman or a taxpayer. Now, I've been using it. I've been using all of it. It was
Yeah,
all
you can
developed.
use it now, but if you're gonna build on it.
Now, I can build and not do this, and I can already build everything and forget about the blue one and landlock it.
This is.
I mean, no, I
this is what
understand,
I'm
I
telling
understand.
you.
I mean, I'm just trying to find somebody that can accept the responsibility, say, you know what, you're right, without having to go through the expense, because now you surveyed it, and now we're not responsible as a city, because.
Is that the actual thing? Can I see it?
No, I have no idea what this is.
Yes, that is
Oh,
the
it is?
survey of the property, showing the different portions.
See, my understanding is the city wants that way nobody's responsible because it's on a survey. But, I mean, if somebody can look at something and say, you know what, he's proving to us that, you know, I mean, I don't understand. I mean, it doesn't even make sense to me. I mean,
Like I say,
There's a purpose for the appeal process, right? That's-
well, the appeal is to say, hey, look, this is not a colonia, I'm not doing a flag thing where I'm putting,
Please.
Information
Yeah, I
on
told you
this.
to stay here for a
So
reason.
a lot of this, obviously, we have to deny because it doesn't comply to our code of
Right.
ordinances.
Right.
However, the real concern here is that there is no building between the property lines, and at some point, this could be segmented off, and then it would still be a landlocked development without the benefit of a plat that actually shows the egress, everything, you know, whether there is some sort of permission to, you know, to go through this other development in order to get to that tract of land. So if there is not a building between property lines, it is a very real threat that this property could be segmented off in the future and still be landlocked. So
yeah, but he
that's what-
owns it, so he doesn't care. He
Understood.
claims.
that'd be my
But
problem,
now-
wouldn't it? I mean, I won't be able to, I mean, I think it'd be my problem at the time, you know.
What we're saying is
How would I
that
sell
the
it?
developmental standards would actually come back and say you would have to build between the property lines to avoid
Up to
that.
him.
Right.
He's choosing to
That's
do
all we're
that.
saying. That is
Yeah.
what you're deciding here.
Yeah.
I understand it makes sense for the city and all
And
that,
it's-
but there's gotta be a point where you say, you know what? It's unreasonable. I mean, it's very common sense to me. I mean,
Understand.
I mean,
The last one we saw here was, Price and, was it South
Been about
Highway
2 years
48?
ago.
Something like, it was on the other side of the street.
The last one was on Billy Mitchell, and yes,
Yes.
that one, what happened, Billy Mitchell came through and it separated the property.
Right.
That's right.
And then after 1995, they sold the separated portion to the abutting neighbor. And that one was overturned with
Yeah.
just reason.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for your time, sir. We'll
okay.
I
talk
can
on
tell
to-
you to agree with her.
Huh?
Or she's gonna run into trouble.
Well, no, I mean, if you agree, that's what you're here for. I mean, I'm trying to say
No, no,
something
no,
that's
no,
common
like
sense. I
that.
mean,
This is
to
what
me, it's,
my
it's,
opinion is.
if you have any questions as far as how I'm gonna develop it and it's not gonna be able to useful, or there's not gonna be any water.
You're still
Or I'm
doing
not-
you're still gonna do the food truck and the.
I've been trying
the
for 2
the-
years.
I know, and.
I mean, I've been going on
We've
2
appro-
years.
we've-
I had to
we've approved-
resurvey it because it's
We've
taking too long.
approved it over the years.
I had a survey
Yeah.
that was 2.5 years old, and they said, you need one, it's 2 years, so I had to do it again on vacant land,
Yeah.
you know?
I know, and he's been here quite a few times.
I had to do a
That's why
survey on vacant land.
All right,
I mean,
thank you.
without a building on it, again, you know? I mean, it's,
All right, gentlemen.
okay, thank you.
Need a motion to
Thank
close public?
Motion to close public.
And a second from Mr. Galante. All in
Oh,
favor?
whose is this?
Oh, this-
Aye.
That's right.
Oh.
All right. Yeah, and action.
Motion to, what is it? Approve the denial in favor of, not defendant, what do you call him? What is it?
Are you trying to?
The plaintiff?
Are you trying to?
No, the approval of
Approval of the determination.
the determination, yes,
To approve the
of the
appeal.
determination certificate,
So
to not require him to subdivide.
It means you're approving his
I wouldn't
appeal.
mention the subdivision. If you are overturning the appeal, to grant the determination certificate.
Yeah,
Okay, yes.
So-
That's what I'm,
so worded
To
that.
grant the
The determination certificate.
To grant it? To grant the determination certificate?
Yes, and
Meet
overturn.
and overturn the denial. Okay, yes. If that's what is clear, that is gonna keep him from having to pay to subdivide.
We
Granting the
require that
determination
land is either
certificate.
subdivided or have a determination certificate issued. If you're
One or the other.
granting it, that's what they need. They have to meet all building code requirements and everything else as well.
Yes, okay. So, motion to approve,
Determination.
Well,
You want to overturn, I think what you're asking, and I'm not saying
Legal, can we have
I
a little
want to, I'm
assistance?
just trying to get you on the same page. Let's have our legal counsel.
They're basically asking you to, the planning and zoning department had said, no, you cannot get a determination certificate. They are here to ask you,
To get one.
please tell them that we
To
can
give
have
us one.
They want you to grant them a determination certificate and overturn the planning and zoning department.
That's correct.
okay. To
Is that-
grant, yes, motion to grant
the
the determination certificate.
All right, so
Yes.
Derek makes a motion to grant the determination certificate. Any seconds? Again, tonight? Any seconds?
I'll second.
Well, Mr. Galansky seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Galante's obviously for it. He seconded it, so that's 3 ayes. 4 unanimous. It's approved. The appeal is approved.
Unanimously?
My goodness, this has been a long evening.
Unanimously.
What's that?
Erica asked.
Unanimously?
It was
Unanimously,
4,
yes.
yes.
Sí,
Okay.
pero ahorita va a jugar con los permisos.
So go build that food vendor truck, or mobile vendor.
Item number 20, public hearing and action to appeal the Historic Preservation Design and Review Board decision for a certificate of appropriateness for the construction at 1137 East Washington Street, Brownsville, Texas 78520.
So this is another appeal that we don't see very often, so I'm going to do another intro and then hand it over to Ms. Miana Leal to present about the case itself. Okay. So the purpose of certificates of appropriateness is to help maintain, return, or enhance the lost or diminished architectural significance of Brownsville's tangible past. A COA is required for any project requiring a building permit that is located within the 011th Historic Overlay District or that pertains to a locally designated landmark. This one is within the 011 district. Here's how our authority is granted: Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties, and then section 348-1522 of the City Code of Ordinance gives the Historic Preservation and Design Review Board the authority to issue COAs. This is an overlay district, so it falls so that the appeal process goes here to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So HPDRB, Historic Preservation Design and Review Board, holds a public hearing. If approved, a COA, Certificate of Appropriateness, is issued. If denied, the applicant may appeal to the Planning and Zoning Commission. If it's approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, the COA is issued. If it's denied, the applicant can then appeal it to City Commission.
Wait a minute, we have decision-making authority here?
Over the H, yeah.
No, not sort of, sort of.
We want
Okay.
more of these, no.
Here we go. So here is the property, and I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Leah.
A little shorter. Good evening. Like Francesca said, my name is Mirna Leal. I am here on behalf of the Historic Preservation Board, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So this did go to our meeting last month. Normally to the board, we present any historical status that a possible building or a piece of land may have. This is a contributing building, meaning that it is a high priority, and it is a potential recorded Texas historical landmark if the property owner chose to invest and bring it back to its historical status. The builder was A. Callaway. It's a classical revival style, and it is right next to the Victor Junco Apartments, so we believe it's an extension of it. This is an aerial view. It is within Market Square. It's on the Washington side. It's that little red rectangle down towards the bottom. This is a view from the northeast, the side of Market Square. As you can see, the appeal that we're going to be discussing today is of the downspout. And so previously, the downspout used to run through the inside of the building, and it would let out down here at the bottom. Now the applicant or the property owner did remove it from here and put it out here on the outside of the building. This work was done without a permit. There is a stop work order with that orange sticker that is right here. And they did come into our office, and they were presented to the Historic Preservation Board. This is another view of the Market Square side. This is the downspout in question. The view from the Washington Street side, so the same issue where the downspout was coming through the interior side of the building. It would let out at the bottom. There is a drainage there that lets out to the street, so the water's not coming up onto the sidewalk. And this is the updated version where the downspout is on the outside, and it doesn't connect directly to the street drainage. It's a little bit off to the side, and you can see that there's some added cement that has been come in to cover where the spout used to spill out to. So this is the neighboring property, and as you can see, there is now, they have the same thing. Here is where theirs would drain. And then this is another version, another view, sorry, of the downspout.
That's a second downspout?
There's
Or the
one
same
on,
one?
there's
One-
one on each side.
one on each
So there's
side.
one on the Washington Street side, and there's one on the Market Square side. And so this is the Market Square side. You can see this new patch of cement that's here, and so it's not directly into it, but if you have heavy rain, which our average rainfall is about 32 to 33 inches a year, we do have some storms. So if the water's coming out, it's not all going to go in through here. We are going to have some spill out onto the sidewalk. Same thing on the, this is another side, other angle of the photograph. So once again, we've got the concrete that covered up where the spout used to come out to, and here it is off onto the side.
Is that an electrical cord?
Yes, that is for the neighboring building, or the neighboring business and structure. So the staff recommendation that was presented to the Historic Preservation Board was to reinstall the downspout in both facades through the interior of the property and connect it to the street drainage like it was before. And the decision was just that. Of course, we're asking that they reinstall it, and that is what the applicant is here to appeal today.
I assume that you're here for that purpose, so please step forward.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lynette Benavides Villarreal, and I'm one of the managing owners of the company that owns this building. Thank you so much I know that I'm the last person on your agenda, and so I'll be brief. But when we purchased this building, we kind of purchased it on a whim. What we found is that the entire apartment units adjacent to these 800 square feet drained on the roof. There's no drainage for everything to the left of that building, those thousands of square feet there where you saw that water pipe. It destroyed everything inside because it would drain through the inside of the building. So all the ceiling tiles, all the wood, we actually were able to find transom windows that are being repaired as we speak right now between the sheetrock and the exterior facade there. Since we've received that orange sticker, we have gone in and did get a repair permit. I was not aware of the Historical Association meeting until after it had happened. I received an email at 9:45. The meeting was at noon at the same day. I opened that email at 3 o'clock. I did not know that they were going to be making decisions or recommendations based off of that meeting. The city has been really wonderful with me after the fact in helping me navigate this system, but I am going to ask that you grant this appeal because I do not want to put the gutters back inside of the building. I have all intention of preserving what should be there, but I can't find one picture that shows me that it absolutely has to be inside of the building or that it was even there. Now, we know that it was there before, but nothing has been changed with the exception of it comes right outside just the way the buildings next door do. And if you look at Market Square, I have videos here. It was raining the other day, and Market Square doesn't even, their gutters or their downspouts don't even have anywhere to drain to. It's actually draining out onto the concrete or the brick that's layered there outside. So it's not even going into any sort of drainage system. I just don't think that for facade or it's just not, as a property owner, I don't want water coming inside my building, especially of the whole building next door that I think Dr. Stern owns, if I'm not mistaken. And he probably doesn't even know.
I just want to say something. I've owned probably most of the downtown buildings since I've been here. And I've never seen gutters inside a building. This is something I've never heard of.
It may have been something of, I mean, that's what I've been told, but it's just not healthy or feasible or affordable to have water running everywhere, and I have pictures of all the damage.
Actually, City Hall drains that way.
This one does, doesn't it?
Regardless of, she's got a point, this was a construction method in the past.
Correct.
And it is something that, must have not have worked that great in the past. but
Obviously.
You see the spouts now in the outside of the building.
I was gonna say.
It is a fact. It's correct in terms of there is the Olvera building actually was born with the spouts outside, and that too is a historical building. So, the concern, I think, for the board is obviously this is her building, and she doesn't want to preserve the historic significance, this is her building.
Absolutely.
However, there was a real, safety concern in terms of the drain not draining fully into the specified canal. I know that I spoke to the applicant, and she is made aware of this fact and will modify so that it drains perfectly in. And again, this is an appeal that's presented before you for your consideration.
Understand, thank you.
Is it really gonna change the historic aspect of the building with downspout, or is it?
According to the Secretary of Interior, it does change it. However, she's been made aware of this, and it's still her decision. This is her
Absolutely,
I mean,
sure.
it's still her property.
That's right.
She doesn't want to make it historical.
That's her, that's right. All right, you have anything else you'd like to add to it?
Just if I could be like notified of what that modification might need to look like.
So that it drains inside the canal, in the pictures that we showed, a piece of it actually drains onto the sidewalk itself. And that's where the safety concern.
Probably put a
is.
cap over it or something of that nature. We
Okay.
understand that it's happening in other places, but if all you have to do is cap that little cover, I think you'd probably be.
Yes, could you, so I can see, please?
All right,
Move to, well,
So like right
Move
here,
to
close public hearing?
there's a little bit
Are
where
we-
it comes
are we
in,
done?
but all of this
Seems
area,
that way.
maybe just.
Do you have anything else, ma'am?
So just so y'all know, that water that is there is from the building next door, and it drains there, so maybe
This wire is not an electrical wire, it's actually a
It's a
drain
wa-
for the AC.
So
From
the
another
thing is that your
Probably.
spout should drain inside of that metal tray.
Yeah, so
that
just
the
figure out
water
where to
goes
cap it or
inside.
something.
got it, just put
Yeah.
a little,
Yeah.
perfect,
All right.
yes, will do.
So if you're done then, thank
Yes.
you very much. I need a
Thank you.
motion, gentlemen.
I'll motion to close public comment.
second.
I have a motion from Frank, second from Miles. All in favor?
Aye.
Action.
And
Motion to approve the
Appeal.
appeal. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
yes.
I have a motion to approve the appeal.
Fixing that?
Anybody else?
Well, I guess, motion to approve the appeal subject to fixing the drain pipe to drain properly in the storm
That's
drain.
fine. Okay. So we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second from Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion
Opposed?
to adjourn.
Abstention.
Abstention.
Abstain.
Motion carries 4 and 1 abstention, 4-0 with 1 abstention.
I'll second the adjournment.
And I have a motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Aye.